We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AVRant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andry, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered. I didn't see nearly as many movies this week. In fact, I didn't go out to the theater even once this past week, but I did watch something at home. I don't see anything on Tom's side of the What We Watched ledger, so I don't know if you watched anything, but we have to address on the YouTube videos. Tom has an owie. What happened to him?
I bonked my head.
Okay.
Because I'm old, and I wear glasses now, and it throws off my depth perception like crazy because they're progressives. And I was working on a bike, and I leaned over and hit my head on the rack, like right on think of like a PVC pipe, but made of metal. And the open side there, I just smacked it real good.
In other words, a pipe, because pipes are quite often metal. So it wasn't.
I understand that, but people sometimes have a hard time. I mean, they're like, wow, big is it? Like a PVC pipe, when they think of it at home, it's like an inch to an inch and a half diameter.
Oh, okay.
That's what this was.
It's like a plastic pipe, but made out of metal, like a
pipe.
But
made out of metal, that's right. Rob, you wouldn't understand. It's an American thing.
Very, very difficult. I immediately, upon seeing Tom on the Skype call, was like, uh-oh, he fell off his bike cycling or something, but nope. It was bicycle related,
I was supposed
apparently
to cycle this morning, but I woke up at 4 a.m. and could not get back to sleep. And now I'm all discombobulated.
No kidding.
So
I'm a little out of sorts this week too.
Concussed
So.
So who knows?
I genuinely hope not on that front. It is not impossible.
It was yesterday.
It doesn't really take that much to get a slight concussion.
No.
Yeah. Anyway.
I think I have more gelatin around my brain than most people, since my brain is smaller than the average.
I wouldn't count on that as being the Homer Simpson protection. But shall we tuck into what we watched this week?
I didn't watch anything again.
Oh, well. There, that's easy on Tom's side.
I'm still working through Arrested Development Season 1, the most recent season of, which is not that recent for Netflix, Junior Bake Off.
Okay.
And Secret Invasion. I think I'm still only 2 episodes into it.
Yeah, that's. I was thinking, because I finished Secret Invasion. It is only 6 episodes. It's more like a mini series than a season of television.
We're almost done with The Night Agent. So if you're watching The Night Agent or thinking about watching The Night Agent on Netflix, we're almost done with it. We should finish that this week.
Okay. So I guess I'll refrain from sharing thoughts on Secret Invasion since Tom hasn't finished yet, but we'll make his way through it. So we'll talk about it then. I guess what I'll tuck into is I watched Knock at the Cabin. That was M. Night Shyamalan's. Was it the latest one? Was there something since then?
Who cares? Honestly, who cares?
It's fairly more recent. I want to...
What's the old one? The one where people got old or something?
Yeah, there's Old.
That's the most recent, right?
I don't know. I think Old came out before Knock at the Cabin. Regardless, Knock at the Cabin, I think, in my opinion, is the best thing M. Night Shyamalan has put out in many years.
Good.
It was quite good. It wasn't fantastic, but it was quite good. I really didn't have any complaints about it. And the praise that people have been giving for Dave Bautista, who is the lead character in this.
Right. I did see something about that. Go on.
I think very well deserved, because here's the thing. This was directed by M. Night Shyamalan. He is one of, I think, 3 writers listed in the written by. Good. Which helps, because when M. Night Shyamalan is the only writer, then you get dialogue like we had in Old, which is unlistenable. It was absolutely atrocious, the dialogue in Old. Now, the dialogue here in Knock at the Cabin, if you read the transcript of it, it's like, well, it's not great dialogue. It's not nearly as bad as the dialogue in Old, but it isn't great dialogue. But I have to say, Dave Bautista managed to deliver some of the lines where I'm like, if you just read the transcript, you're like, that's a pretty hard line to deliver. He was excellent. I completely bought into like he's actually saying those words, even though those words don't really sound like the way a normal person talks. He managed to find an acting delivery of it that totally worked, and for that, I think he deserves a heck of a lot of praise, because not everybody can pull off M. Night Shyamalan dialogue without sounding absolutely corny and ridiculous. But all the actors, honestly, in Knock at the Cabin, I thought did a very good job. People have been critical. Rupert Grint is in this movie, probably best known as Ron Weasley, of course, from the Harry Potter movies. He is playing someone who is supposed to be from Boston. That is definitely not a Boston accent that he is doing.
It is an accent.
It is some sort of accent. People have been very critical of it. I didn't mind it, though, because we don't know what this character's backstory is. People can live in Boston and have come from somewhere else originally. It's not like people don't move there.
I follow a woman on, I think, TikTok, maybe. I don't remember. But she's from Ireland or something, Scotland or something like that. Yeah. And her accent is completely bizarre. Like, I have never heard anything like it.
Which is probably,
and she described her background, and she's like, I lived here for a while, I lived here for a while, and I lived here, and now I live in Ireland, and nobody can understand me. I'm like, just keep talking. It's amazing.
But what I quite liked about Knock at the Cabin is, even though, of course, like, things are heightened, timelines are condensed, and all that type of stuff. I mean, just to give the basic sort of premise of this, these four people show up at, there's a young family, just two parents and a daughter, who are staying at a cabin on vacation, and, they're out of cell phone range, like your typical thriller type of movie would, of course, have them be. But these four people show up, knock at their cabin door, and tell them that amongst the three of them in this young small family have to make a horrible choice, or else terrible things will happen elsewhere in the world, and it's all kind of vague. And of course, they don't believe them at first. I felt like the way that everything progressed in this movie, while not necessarily 100% believable in realism, I was like, at least it made sense, right? Like, people asked the type of questions you would ask. People denied or didn't believe the type of things that I believe a real person would. Like, I didn't find any of the reactions or questions or things that weren't asked or things that were asked. Like, it wasn't like a lot of the more recent M. Night Shyamalan stuff where you're just like, nobody is this stupid or unrealistic. It's completely taken me out of the movie. Knock at the Cabin was not like that. I was quite happy watching this movie. So I definitely praise Dave Bautista's performance. I think this movie is worth watching for him alone in this. The actual, like, cinematography, the way the movie was shot, felt on the simple side. There weren't any sort of standout cinematic moments or anything like that. It all felt like it was simply shot, and perhaps could have been elevated beyond that on that level with a more skilled, just technical filmmaker in that sense. But I think I can give it a thumbs up. Not a way up, but for Dave Bautista alone, I think it's worth a watch. I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay, so I obviously haven't seen this movie, nor have I read the script. And probably neither of those things will ever happen. I will say that it is often hard as a non-actor or non-theater professional to look at a script and realize how good or bad the dialogue can be. Sure. And I'm not saying that to comment on your comment, as just like in general. If you want to understand how difficult it can be to read a play and understand what it's going to look and sound like on the stage, pick up any Harold Pinter play and read it. Because the dialogue is like, I remember the first time I read that, I was like, no one has said anything in 7 pages. No one has said it. It's all conjunctions and trailing off sentences. Nothing is being said. Yeah. And then I saw a scene initially, and then eventually a play and action. And he's had some of his plays have been turned into movies. Betrayal is the one that comes to mind off the top of my head. But when you see them performed, you're like, oh my God, this dialogue is amazing. It's so realistic. It's so lifelike. There's so much there, and the actors are just like killing themselves, making this thing totally work. And you read on the page, you're like, there's nothing. There's literally nothing. Who wrote this? They are an imbecile.
For television, for something that, like, more people have probably seen, like, there would be stretches in the scripts for Breaking Bad that would be like that, or Better Call Saul, because there's long stretches of no dialogue. It's silence as far as what is being spoken, but there's so much happening, which means that it has to all be there in the physical performances. So I certainly wouldn't say Knock at the Cabin is that. Everybody is talking all the time, and things are spoken overtly. But I think that it's funny because it's M. Night Shyamalan. And you can't help but know that because they, once again, plaster his name at the beginning in the credits. And, of course, he makes his cameo appearance where, my goodness, M. Night Shyamalan should never speak lines. He should, I guess he's doing the Hitchcock thing of always putting himself in the movie somewhere, but Hitchcock was smart enough to not give himself lines. He would just walk by in the background somewhere, which is what M. Night Shyamalan should do, because he sticks out like a sore thumb as an actor in every one of his movies. But I did myself a disservice watching Knock at the Cabin because I was waiting for it to all fall apart like all the M. Night Shyamalan movies of recent have done, and it didn't. So in that way, I was pleasantly surprised. Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask you if there's a twist or not, but I will say, just in general, I agree with what you say as far as him not putting himself, like Lady in the Lake, he was like the main character. And you're like, oh my God, you're killing me, dude. And it's not that he can't be a good actor, but in theory, but I tell you what he can't do, and very few people can do, is be a good actor and also direct yourself.
Okay.
It's like, it's
I mean, you had Bill Hader doing that in Barry just recently, where he directed every episode of the final season, and he was still good on screen, so it can be done.
I'm not saying it can't be done. I'm saying it's very difficult.
Sure.
And it takes us, you have to be good at both things, and I think you have to be good at acting first before you can.
That might help.
You could direct yourself. Anyways, so, but yes, you're right. He should. Though I can totally understand if I was a director and I was directing the movie, I would definitely put myself in there someplace. I would get a line, guaranteed.
Right.
But I'm also
a line, okay. Yeah. Anyway, if you have limited time and you have a choice between two M. Night Shyamalan movies of Old and Knock at the Cabin, definitely go for Knock at the Cabin without question. It is the much, 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 much better movie.
Or just watch The Sixth Sense again.
True.
All right. I didn't watch anything, as I said, so that's...
We got lots of questions, so let's crack on ahead.
There's something going on with this chair.
I'm sure there always
Excuse me. And I turn the AC down and everything, and I'm sweating in here. I have 2 children in this house, and they were both asleep still.
Okay.
So who knows?
At some point, there will be rousings.
It will be rousing. Yes. Let's start the podcast. This is the AVRant podcast, where we answer your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask us by emailing us at question@avrant.com. You go to our website, find our episodes, our show notes, Flickr albums, so you can follow along with the pictures we're talking about, all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
AVRant.com. You can find us on Facebook.com/AVRant podcast, YouTube.com/AVRant, where you can see our. Who knows what the lip sync will look like this week?
Yeah, it's not nearly as bad as when we started and had to start over because it was 3 seconds of lips behind the audio.
I felt like it was more than that.
They were bad.
I felt like it was greater than 3 seconds.
Usually once Tom begins with
technology,
with the word welcome, we just never stop again, no matter what happens from that point on. But this time I forced the issue and had to make that stop. You'll never know. You'll never know.
Sorry, I'll never know because I probably have a concussion. I'll forget all this. This has
Hope not.
never happened. Hope not to. You can contact us directly. Rob at avrant.com. His handle everywhere.
Yes, that's
including
the
all the social
way,
media sites is at First Reflect. I'm Tom at avrant.com if you want to email me directly. Not that it'll do you any good because I hardly ever check that email address.
Yep.
Full of spam, in case you're wondering. Full of spam.
Right.
I'm going to thank our listeners of the week. To become a listener of the week, I'll have you support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. That will take you to a PayPal donation site. So we had 3 listeners do that this week. We have Peter, who calls himself a home theater newbie, though he says he's been listening to us for a little bit over a year. And I will tell you, you may feel like a newbie, but just by osmosis, by accident, if you've listened to every podcast in the last year, you are so much more an expert than
some info.
I think
should have sunk in there by now. There's been some repetition in that time for sure, so some things should have gotten in there.
Just about all of Reddit, to be honest with you. What's going on? I don't even know what's going on with Reddit anymore. I thought there was a boycott. Are we done boycotting?
Oh,
are we not mad at them
they
anymore?
gave that up within like 5 days. Of course, they all came back.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. Is it just me that when I get mad at something or somebody, I'm just like, you're dead to me. And then literally that's it. Like, okay. So I have never really boycotted a restaurant, because some restaurant chains, they have politics or whatever. But I'll tell you what, I got sick after eating at Chick-fil-A one time. Now, I don't think
you
that
mentioned
eating...
that,
yeah, I have. I don't think that eating there made me get sick,
Mhm.
but the association in my brain has been there.
Is
I have
enough.
been back there once.
Yeah.
And that was for like some sort of fundraiser, and I felt sick the entire night afterwards. Psychosomatically, I am absolutely sure it makes no difference. I'm never going to Chick-fil-A again.
Right. I guess I can just mention on the whole social media front, Threads did get the like only people you follow and in chronological order thing in there, so I like it now. That's where I'm going to be. Don't look for me on X anymore. Come find me on Threads.
X.
It's very dumb. I do kind of enjoy that even after the app update and it says X everywhere and the Twitter logo went away, if you like wait a little while and you have to press the thing to like show more posts, it still says show more tweets. It doesn't say show more X's. They haven't
He's
gotten
only
around
got
to
like 7
changing
people
that yet.
still working over
pretty
there doing
much.
anything. It's hard to get things done when he's busy fighting the whatever the people in San Francisco about putting the X on top of the building and everything. I don't know what he's doing over there. He's very smart. He's a very smart man.
It's become it was already clear, but it's become just incontrovertibly clear that Elon's whole personality is he's just a dick. That's that like it's not necessary.
We're cursing on this episode, people. Put it not safe for work on this one on there. Now that Rob's opened the floodgates, you guys are all found out how I actually talk. Okay, because I don't talk like I talk on this podcast. Rob knows. I curse like a sailor.
No, I mean like that's all of it. That is the entirety of if you want to predict,
just a bro.
Yeah, if you want to predict what he's going to do, like just what would an absolute dick do, and that's what it'll be.
Imagine what a butthurt gym rat would do.
Oh, he's not a gym rat though.
But he's not a gym rat. I mean, that's the thing, and I don't think that's fair, really, to people who go to gyms, because I mean. I know a lot of people go to gyms, and they're very nice people, and they're very reasonable and smart and everything else. But there's a stereotype of that type of person that I'm referring to, and I hope that if you feel lumped into that, please don't. If you're listening to this podcast, you're already well above Elon Musk, as far as I'm concerned. Anyways,
yes.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, back to the people who supported this podcast. It would have been a weird
How
section.
How did we get on that?
We could sort of start over because we only mentioned Peter, so we started with Peter there, and there's 2 more names.
There are 2 more names. Clearly not as important as Peter, though. Sorry. No, okay, so. 3 people went to avrant.com, clicked on the buy us a cup of coffee link, and sent us PayPal donations. Peter, Galen, and Alan. So thank you, Peter, Galen, and Alan.
Thank you very much, Peter, Galen, Alan, for your PayPal donations. We definitely
time
appreciate
out of your busy gym workout schedules.
Financial support. I mean, we do have gym rat people. We know for a fact we have gym rat people who listen to this
I know.
podcast.
We got the guy who's got who's going to have hearing loss from slamming down the thing. I don't know. I went to a CrossFit class one time on the recommendation of a friend of mine who is I think instructor and everything else there. And I showed up there, and he was first of all, I went once and never went again because I almost puked all over myself, and that was the end of that. That's not my scene. I exercise plenty, thank you very much, especially for my age. And I walked in, and he was there powerlifting or something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy the kind of weight he was putting up there. And he's like, I'm almost done. I got a couple more sets, and then I'll probably be here for another half an hour. Well, my class was like an hour, right? And when I left, he was still going. I'm like, jeez, oh criminy. Of course, the guy is completely yoked, and he is the nicest guy too. It's like just the nicest guy. Okay. We also want to thank our 135 patrons over at patreon.com. Patreon's a service where you sign up to become a contributing supporter of our podcast every month. Some money will come from Patreon or come from you into Patreon, and they'll forward most of it to us.
That's right.
So we have 135 patrons.
A little slice for themselves. Yeah, that's right. Patreon.com/AVRant podcast if you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation. Oh dear, you know what? Because I put that up there like in the wee hours of this morning, that 135 figure. Apparently many people's credit cards just expired like just now.
Oh no.
Because it dropped precipitously down to 127 in like the past 2 hours. So I don't know what happened
127, I'm changing it. 127, everybody get it. Go to patreon.com, update your credit card information.
I think so. Yeah. No, the 135 was there like as of like the wee hours of this morning. So it wasn't even just the date change. At some point they came across when they update that. So there you go. Yeah, I thought I would check it just now just to see. So there we go. Anyway, Thank you very much for the financial support. Those of you who are still around on Patreon.
That's right. All right, if you can't support us financially, support us in some other way, and we'll talk about it here. So Gary sent Rob a movie code to test out for him. Now remember, you're not gifting us movie codes.
It says right there, non-transferable when you buy the disc. Right. Yep.
But Gary is an avid physical media collector. He bought an Ultra HD Blu-ray version of Lawrence of Arabia online, which came from France. But it included a digital code that says it only works in Canada, which seems odd to him. So since the only Canadian in his whole life that he knows is Rob, he sent it to Rob to test out because he simply had to know if it was legitimate. So
that's correct.
We'll have to find out. Rob will have to figure it out.
We'll have to test it for you, see you. But thank you, Gary, for reaching out with that, and showing an image that he sent along of his media collection. It kind of looks like a video rental store.
It looks like a Blockbuster.
That's right.
I mean, good.
He's got the walls lined. He's got the little stands in the middle to create the aisles, just like a video rental store used to have. So.
Those of you that have actually been to a Blockbuster, it doesn't look at all like a Blockbuster. It is much more full of discs than a Blockbuster. It actually looks like there's this place I used to go in San Francisco that like did nothing but like obscure indie and anime and all these weird, VHS, because that's how long ago that was. And that's what this looked like, except it's much brighter. Yeah. Because usually those places are dark. We also got some notes of gratitude for keeping the podcast going through what happened this week, Rob. I feel like...
Oh, goodness.
Maybe there's like some sort of 7 hottest days of the year happened in the last
I'm sure.
week.
Yes.
Yeah, I think happened like that.
I mean, we're still in summer. August has just begun, so seeing those records get broken would not be a shock. And
I got up for cycling the other day at 6 a.m. I looked at the weather, and it said it was 82 degrees, feels like 103.
Lovely.
It's like, oh my God, am I really going to go out in this? And the answer was yes.
Oh, dear.
So we got ghost of gratitude from Vince, who, as he says, as a longtime listener, he really appreciates what we do on the podcast and is definitely a 2 Hour Plus Club member. Fred, who really appreciated our suggestions for USB microphones. He ended up with going with Rob's full shopping list, Audio Technica 2100X dynamic mic with a desk arm and shock mount, which seemed to be working perfectly for him. He can even use it with his walking treadmill that he set up under his standing desk.
Yeah,
that's
nice.
Cool. Jonathan went ahead and bought 2 spare lamps for his Sony 325 ES projector. He uses it pretty much every day for about 4 hours a day, so he expects he'll make use of them.
Yeah.
Galen, Gary, Teemu, Larry, Peter, who saw Oppenheimer in a 70mm film presentation and thought it was stunning, worth the 3 hours without any bathroom. I'm not making it, man. Without any bathroom breaks, 3 hours.
Yep.
I drink way too much water to try to recover from the 103 feels like outside.
Yeah, fair enough.
I drink all day long. Dazz, Eric, who enjoyed our guest co-host episodes and is super excited to see Oppenheimer in 70mm IMAX. Julian, who's sharing the house with an infant, means the home theater isn't getting much use these days, but he still listens to every episode of AVRant to get his weekly dose of home theater. Jorge,
yes,
Ilango, he, for one, enjoys our discussions at the start of each show before we dig into all the questions. Ryan and Vasanth has started following our podcast every episode.
That's a lot of names, so I'll repeat them because that'll be enough. We say Vince, Fred, Jonathan, Galen, Gary, Teemu, Larry, Peter, Dazz, Eric, Julian, Jorge, Ilango, Ryan, and Vasanth. Thank you all so much for your notes of gratitude and encouragement. They're very much appreciated. And a big thanks to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
All right, in the news, Monoprice has released some new, less powerful, more affordable Monolith amplifiers. The Monolith M2100X, M3100X, and M5100X. Let's see if we can all figure out how many channels they have.
I mean, you can't complain about their model numbers because they make a fair amount of sense.
Monolith, and then they put an X on the end because why the heck not? Yes. Are all rated to deliver 90 watts, which is not 100, but whatever, into 8 ohms or 135 watts into 4 ohms, as you can guess from the model numbers. These are 2, 3, and 5 channel amplifiers, respectively. Prices are $4, $5, and $5.50. So 400, 500, and 550.
Yeah.
Okay, a 7-channel M7100X was briefly shown on the website, but the listing for that model has since been removed for some reason. So, I don't know, they're probably shipping or something, who knows. Perhaps it will return in the future. All these models include both RCA and XLR inputs on the back, which I think has got Emotiva beat in this.
That
right?
is pretty much it, because Emotiva's base X models that are the around 100 watts per channel in that vicinity only have RCA inputs. So Monolith has decided to put XLR inputs on there. That's why it's the 2100X and 3100X and so forth.
Look at that!
Yes.
So smart. It specifically mentioned that XLR inputs are still single-ended and that the signal-to-noise ratio is okay, but not stellar at 100 dB A-weighted. While the aesthetics are similar, these do not appear to be made by ATI like the more expensive, more powerful Monolith amplifier models. These new amps clearly state on the back that they're made in China, so we aren't sure who the OEM is. They do have a single toroidal transformer inside. So there you go.
That's right. Yeah, I'm pretty darn sure that's not being OEM'd by ATI, because they make and assemble everything in the USA over at ATI. So it looks like Monolith has reached out to a different OEM. Not exactly sure who it is, but they've got these amplifiers. I mean, pretty nice 550 for a 5-channel, 90 watts per channel amplifier, and that's all channels driven. So that is more powerful.
They had these when I was looking for a 2-channel.
Yes.
$400 all over this. I'm going to tell you, and I know this is going to come as a huge shock to you, Rob. I think this is I am so tired of amplifiers and this arms race of watts that I think that this is absolutely the way to go.
I mean, in most situations, this will be absolutely what you need when you need to add some external amplifiers.
Who contact this podcast and other, go on websites and stuff, and they just want to buy an amp because they just can't get it out of their heads that they need an amplifier. This is what you need. And
even if they're like, in this case, there is definitely no electrical benefit to the balanced XLR connection because it isn't actually a balanced connection, and they make that very clear. And the gain on both the XLR and the RCA inputs is the same. Right. there's no differences going on there. But if you just feel better about the more robust plug of the XLR connector, then that'll work for you too.
If you want to future-proof, right? Because you don't know, maybe you'll buy a processor, pre-pro in the future, and it'll have XLR outputs, and you'll be able to actually use them. Even though it doesn't do anything for you. Well, buying the amp wasn't going to do anything for you most of the time anyways. This is like, this gets into impulse buy for home
Getting
theater.
Pretty close there, yeah.
You know what I mean? This is really nice. This is really nice.
Yeah.
The PS5 will be getting a firmware update that finally adds Dolby Atmos support. It's in beta right now, and one of our listener, Charles, has confirmed that it works for games and streaming services.
Yeah, so that's nice.
Did it already? They didn't do discs, and they still won't do discs with Dolby Atmos?
There was that whole thing that was separate, which was for physical
disc. They did that already, right?
Yeah, for physical disc playback, you could get the bitstream output off of your movie discs. That was possible. But for streaming, the PS5 was limited to, at most, you could do 7.1 uncompressed PCM. And sometimes if you set it that way, there was literally nothing coming out of the surround back channels, and then you couldn't upmix anything into the surround back channels if you have them, because it was already being output as an uncompressed 7.1 PCM signal. So, it was a little bit limited in terms of support for your streaming services. And then on the game front, Sony has predominantly been using their own 3D format surround, which was really targeted at headphone use. So there actually been mentions about this that it is still like Sony's own 3D sound that they're using, at least in their own games, but now they're just putting it into an Atmos container so that your home theater system or your Atmos soundbar can finally play that back instead of having to just send out a stereo signal and upmix it from there, which was the old way that you used to do things. So glad to see this support, particularly for if you use your PS5 as a streaming player, that you can finally get that Dolby Atmos audio going from Netflix, for example.
Wow, just in time.
Yeah. There are the rumors of a PS5 Pro coming out next year, and I'm like, why? We have virtually no PS5 exclusive games as it is. We need a more powerful one already?
No. Somebody wants a more powerful one.
Yeah.
All the speedrunners want things to load faster. Samsung's 110-inch micro-LED modular TV has been available to consumers for almost 2 years now. It's currently priced at $150,000.
Yes.
That seems reasonable.
It's a wee bit more expensive than the 98-inch LCDs that are out there.
Yeah. Now, Samsung has announced that an 89-inch model for only $100,000 is coming to market. It arrives pre-assembled, but is still made from modular panels with visible seams if you look close enough. And it still doesn't have Dolby Vision. So,
yeah, because it's Samsung.
That's Samsung.
So, this micro LED thing, it is progressing.
Perfect for hooking up your PlayStation before they do the Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, a little bit more slowly than a lot of people had predicted when we first started seeing The Wall. We thought it might come down in price and get more available a little bit quicker than this, but they're making progress. So now we're down to the, more could actually reasonably fit in your living room size, 89 inches. That's still a large screen, but not, astronomical like the original The Wall. And just $100,000 for that,
Seems reasonable.
Yeah.
Sony is bringing its flagship 2023 QD-OLED TV models, the A95L series, to market. They'll be more expensive than Samsung's S95C models. Whatever. But they're arriving at lower price points than last year's A95K models.
Yes.
If you're confused, and I don't know, I'll not tell you. There's a 77-inch size this year in addition to a 55 and 65-inch. The prices will be $2,800, $3,500, and $5,000, so basically $500 more than Samsung's current prices. So,
yeah.
You're paying a little bit extra for Sony's name.
That's right.
And Dolby Vision.
And Dolby Vision, that's the whole thing. If you want a quantum dot OLED television that does support Dolby Vision, Sony is the only game in town. So you could head on over there if you want the 77-inch size. Of course, you'd have to come to this year's A95L series in Sony's lineup to get that 77-inch size. So these are using the newest quantum dot OLED panels, the ones that can genuinely get to like 1500 nits of peak brightness. They are impressive televisions. And also the Sony ones will have the Pentonic 1000 HDMI chip in there, which means they have 2 full bandwidth HDMI 2.1 ports. Not all 4. 2 out of the 4 HDMI ports are the full bandwidth HDMI 2.1. So that'll be supported there. So pretty darn good feature support in there. Excellent panels and image quality. And the way Sony always tunes their televisions is they do try to mimic the same level of shadow detail as a mastering monitor. So like on their LCDs, that sometimes means fairly gray looking blacks, but as they make sure all the shadow detail is still visible. They never crush blacks over there at Sony. So a similar thing was present in last year's quantum dot OLEDs, where the Sonys tended to have the better shadow detail retrieval versus the Samsungs that might crush a little bit of that shadow detail to make the contrast appear higher. So once again, if you want sort of the most accurate to the mastering monitor, Sony is probably your bet, and they're charging an extra $500 for that.
There you go. Some comments from our listeners. Galen wanted to report back. We saved him from buying a new TV or paying a repair shop just to look at it when nothing was actually wrong. He thought it might have been a failing power supply since it was shutting itself off after 30 minutes, which it never used to before. Mm-hmm. He does not have an Xbox, but thanks to our advice, he discovered that at some point his Roku turned on its auto power saving just to put itself to sleep after 20 minutes of no activity. He unchecked that box and his TV power problem went away. Remember, we were trying to figure out, we knew it was HDMI-CEC. We didn't know.
We suspected
that it was HDMI-CEC that was causing the issue, where his TV suddenly and inexplicably out of nowhere started turning itself off every 20 to 30 minutes or whatever.
And then he would turn it back on. It seemed to be fine, but another 30 minutes would elapse and it would turn itself back off again. He's like, uh-oh, is that a power supply problem?
It turns out it was his Roku. Furthermore, he turned the auto power saving in the Roku back on just to check, and sure enough, the problem came back, so that was definitely the cause.
Yeah.
What's puzzling is that he has 3 different models of Roku in the house. They all indicate they're using the same software version. The oldest model he has did not turn our auto power saving on. The other two did at some point, but only the one that's plugged into the AV receiver was causing this problem with the TV. His third Roku was plugged directly into another LG TV, but that one isn't powering off automatically. So a little strange, but there's no question that HDMI-CEC and that power auto whatever saving setting in the Roku was to blame in his theater. So why isn't it? He's like, I don't understand if he goes and checks them all.
Yeah.
Finds that some of them have the power saving on and some of them have it off, but only one of the three is actually causing an issue. And he's like, I don't understand why this is. Yes, we know. No one does.
Oh.
I don't think people at HDMI know why this happens.
Well, I mean, the thing is, like, on the one where he's got an LG TV that has no AV receiver attached to it, so the sources are all plugged into the individual HDMI ports, like, in the one that does have an AV receiver in his theater, well, that means all his sources are plugged into the AV receiver, which means there's a single HDMI plug going from the AV receiver to the TV. So the TV is always on the same input, right? The TV is never switching inputs. The TV in his home theater is always on the same HDMI input. So yeah, somehow the CEC signal from a non-active HDMI source, he's not watching the Roku at the time, he's watching a disc player using some other source, but that CEC signal is getting through the AV receiver to that single, always in use HDMI input on his TV. So that's, I mean, I can't explain why the AV receiver isn't able to filter that out for you. That's inexplicable to me, but it would explain why, the TV itself, it's like, well, as far as it's concerned, it's just always getting the signal from the same HDMI input. So that partially explains what's going on there.
Partially.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Steve in Australia wanted to share his story of buying a refurbished 77-inch Sony OLED. When the new A80L series came out, $7,000 Australian for the 77-inch.
Mm-hmm.
The A80K series went on clearance for $4,000 Australian. But he waited too long, and every store was out of stock by the time he was ready to purchase. But in Australia, Sony sells refurbished items through their own eBay store. They had a 77-inch A80K units for $3,650.
Yeah.
The listing stated a 30-day return window and a 1-year warranty from Sony, so he figured to give it a shot. The bad part was the delivery experience. The tracking info on the invoice didn't work at all, and the eBay store just said shipped with no further info.
Yeah.
So he found a contact number for the Sony eBay store, and they managed to give him a tracking number through DHL. Days went by with the tracking just saying held at location. A couple of calls to DHL had them saying it was a large item that required a 2-person delivery team, and they contacted him in advance and to book a day and a time. More days went by. Then out of the blue, he gets a call from his wife while he's at work. A single DHL delivery guy showed up. Steven's wife just happened to be home from work that day. She had to help him get it out of the van, and the box was all banged up. But
yeah, that's DHL for you, all right.
happily, the TV seems to be perfect despite being refurbished. It looks completely brand new, and he tested out the panel uniformity with some gray screen test patterns. It's a very clean panel, no vertical streaks. So in all, he's happy with how much money he saved. He'd recommend buying refurbished if it's coming directly from the manufacturer, but be prepared for some stress when it comes to the delivery experience. I mean, that could happen in any delivery experience, anybody.
It sure could. I mean, all the couriers here, I can't think of one that I actually like. The only delivery service I like in my area is the post office. The post office is very good at delivering packages. All the couriers are like, oh, I'm just dreading what they might or might not do because it's always a crapshoot. Yep. You're not alone. We like Refurbished too.
All right. Vince, this is questions now. Ooh. Vince has dual HSU VTF2 Mark IV subwoofers. He has installed one port plug in each of them, so both subs are running a single port mode single port mode. He's got them positioned in diagonally opposite corners in his 13 by 16 by 10 room. I feel like these are overkill for this space.
Well, I mean, the VTF2s, that's their normal 12-inch subwoofers.
Okay.
I mean, granted, they probably could handle a room a little bit larger than this, but that's not, like, ridiculous overkill or anything.
In addition to the normal volume knob crossover, which is actually a low-pass filter knob, and a 0 or 180-degree polarity switch, the HSU subs have an additional operating mode, EQ1 and EQ2 switch, as well as a Q knob that goes from 0.3 to 0.7. By default, the phase switch was set to 0, the operating mode was set to EQ1, and the Q knob was set in the middle at 0.5. Could we explain to him what these controls actually do to the signal, and could he improve the bass response of this room by changing any of them? So did these not come with a manual? Because that definitely would have said what those EQ things. I know what a Q is, but
yeah,
EQ1
although
and EQ2.
In this instance, the way they're using Q is not the normal way that we normally use Q in describing a specification. So, I'm not sure. Maybe he bought these used or just lost the manual, which would be easy enough to do.
Right. So for those of you that are like, as a basic overview of how these things work, any sub that comes with multiple ports and port plugs almost certainly is going to have something on the back of it, and speakers too for that matter, something on the back of it that's going to change the response of the speaker based on which ports or how many ports or any ports that are plugged. Okay, that almost always is the case. And the reason is because you, by changing the number of ports that are plugged, you were changing how the speaker itself, speaker or subwoofer, operates. And therefore the EQ should be different based on that. So the EQ settings are going to be based on, sometimes you see these with just regular subwoofers or regular speakers where they'll be based on how close to a wall you put them, or whether or not they're inside of a cabinet, or if you just want an extended mode or something like that. But if there's ports that can be plugged and they provide you with plugs for the ports, they will usually include some sort of EQ adjustment or crossover adjustment based on the fact that you are now going to add ports or not add ports. So go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, so I had to look up the manual online, which I didn't find easily on HSU's own website, although I'm sure if I dug far enough, I would have been able to find it there. But I did find someone, of course, who had posted the manual at some point online. So I will say, even if he had the manual, it didn't necessarily really explain what these things are actually doing to the signal. There's if you're using it in this size room, we recommend these settings, but it doesn't really say why or exactly what it's doing. So that might have been purely what he's asking. So I'll just say, if you run this thing in its normal mode, which is no ports plugged, so both ports open, then the natural tuning frequency of the VTF2 Mark IV, according to the specifications, is that it would be minus 3 decibels at 25 hertz, which is pretty darn standard for a lot of subwoofers. Doesn't mean it can't play anything at 20 hertz, but just the natural tuning, given the size of the box and the length of the ports and all of that, would be 25 hertz. That's where it would be minus 3 dB. So they do say that EQ1, the EQ1 setting, basically just means no filter is being applied. It's just the natural way that the driver is going to move in and out without any filtering applied if you set it to EQ1. They actually recommend that if you're using the subwoofer with no ports plugged, with both ports open, that you set it to EQ2. Because what EQ2 does is applies a filter on the low end of the subwoofer. It's actually a high pass filter, or what's sometimes called a rumble filter, meaning that it puts in a fairly steep drop-off below 25 hertz to protect the driver. Sure. Right, that way, if you're running it full, no ports plugged, therefore no air damping going on inside of the cabinet, that it won't bottom itself out if you put it in EQ2. It's applying a rumble filter or a high-pass filter on the bottom. So that's why they suggest if you do plug one of the ports, like you have done, into what they call extended mode, now you actually have some physical air damping of the movement of that driver. It's like there's an air cushion in there, right? When it moves in and out, not the exact amount of air doesn't move in and out of the cabinet because there isn't quite enough port volume for that to happen. So it's like having a bit of an air cushion protects the movement of the driver a little bit that way. So they say, go ahead and run an EQ1 if you're doing that. That's no filter applied. So Q, that Q knob that it has, Q normally we see as something on a parametric EQ. Right. And Q stands for quality, although it doesn't really mean the quality, as in a value judgment. What the way Q normally works is that when you have a higher numerical value, like the 0.7 instead of the 0.3, if you had a parametric EQ, it would be a narrower bandwidth that equalization filter is being applied, whereas at the 0.3 setting, it would be a wider bandwidth, a greater range.
Right.
That's right. So narrower is the higher number. So in this case, it seems like it's a low-end roll-off, not entirely dissimilar from the rumble filter, but not as aggressive as that. It seems like it's a low-end roll-off in this application. So they talk about using in the manual the 0.3 setting, that lowest numerical value, to give the most headroom and the flattest response in a small room where there would be more room gain, while the 0.7 setting provides the least low base headroom but the flattest response in a large room. So I mean, all that's saying to me is that the 0.7 setting, again, is basically not a filter. And then the 0.3 setting or the 0.5 setting in between is like a little bit of a low end filter is being applied. Again, this is what you would see on some other subwoofers as like the room tuning. Which is just saying, we expect if you're in a very small room and you put it in the corner of a very small room, you're going to have a lot of room gain. So we're actually going to roll off the bottom end a little bit so that you don't have this big, like, boost coming up in the bottom end, whereas in a large room where you don't have as much room gain in the deep bass, we won't filter off the low end as much. So they actually suggest that if you're using a room correction program, they specifically say Odyssey by name, that they recommend setting the subwoofer with one of the ports open, one of the ports plugged, with the EQ set to 1, which seems to be pretty darn standard, and then setting the Q to 0.7 so that the subwoofer is essentially just running without any filters applied to it, and then allow your room's correction system to do the filtering for you. So, I mean, I guess you could try switching that Q knob from 0.5 to 0.7 instead. I don't really think it's going to make any sort of dramatic difference in your room size, but that's the recommendation right there in the manual. So yeah, a tiny little change that you could try. I would not anticipate you hear any difference if you do that. Yeah.
So that's usually the way you want to run things. If you're, I mean, that's what we say about everything else. It's so, but it is important to know. There's a subwoofer companies and companies in general like to differentiate. I'm thinking of REL, like to differentiate themselves from other companies by adding controls and mechanisms and weirdness on the back of in their products that nobody else has. And it's like, ooh, we're special. We have this and nobody else have it. And I see that post online. Well, this company has this thing that no other company has. So, maybe maybe that makes them better. I'm like, no, that makes them stupider, because there's no reason for everybody. If it was important for everybody to have it, everybody would have it. That would just be a standard feature. The fact that it's not standard doesn't make them necessarily better unless they're somehow cutting edge, but they're not. Yeah, because
I mean, normally for subs, I prefer to have like no ports plugged, no filters applied, just let the thing run free. But they've actually, like, in this sense, it's almost as if they over-ported this sub, or gave you the option to over-port this sub. And then
went the other direction with it.
Yeah, if you do that, then they want that EQ2 filter applied, the rumble filter applied on the low end to protect the driver if you do that. So the single port open is more like that's the way it probably should have been tuned. And then when you put on EQ1 and the Q knob set to 0.7, you are applying no additional filters to it, which is fine.
And there's certainly a argument to be made for designing a sub this way, but I understand having the port plugs and the EQ. The Q knob just seems silly. Anyways, Teemu has been enjoying his 5.1.4 setup for 6 years now. You've had 6 years to buy a second sub, my friend.
Oh,
6 years.
We might get to a little bit of that. Yeah.
He had 3 identical KEF R100 bookshelf speakers across the front with the KEF E301 egg and a T101 super flat speakers that surrounds and overheads. One of his KEF R100 speakers broke. He can't find one to purchase anywhere as a replacement because they've been around. They've
discontinued model. Yeah.
And the cost for repair makes it not worth it. He's been using a phantom center for the time being, but he misses having an actual center. So he doesn't have the money on hand right now to replace all 3 of his front speakers, but he does want to maintain a very close timbre match. He wouldn't mind getting a speaker upgrade, and he's fine with eventually replacing all front speakers when funds allow. But for now, should he get a single speaker to use as a center, or move one of his remaining R100 speakers to center duty and get a new pair of front left and right speakers? Boy, He didn't tell us a budget, right? So we don't know exactly how much he has to spend.
Except that he knows he doesn't have enough to get all 3 right away if he's getting something equivalent or more expensive to the KEF R series, which are fairly spendy speakers.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I mean,
so is he wanting to stick with KEF though? Is the real question.
That's his first thought, and then later he's like, should I consider another brand? I mean, here's the thing: if you just stick with KEF, they are certainly not going to be worlds apart. No. I mean, honestly, any of the KEF speakers that use their Uni-Q drivers, even though there are some differences from the Q series to the R series to the LS series to the Blade and the Muon, there's differences there, but overall the timbre match, certainly the dispersion characteristics are much more similar than different. Sure. So if you were to get the current R series center speaker, which would be the R2 Meta, which he does ask about in just a second, like there would be no problem pairing that up with your R100 front, left, right speakers.
Yeah.
So I would lean towards, like, if budget is a concern right now, I would probably get a center. I would probably stick with Kef, and yeah, that would be my first thought.
Right. So he's considering an order from least expensive to most expensive: the Kef LS50 Meta, R3 Meta 3-way bookshelf speakers, or R2 Meta Center, a single or a pair of each. He's also willing to consider a different brand altogether, perhaps Revel. What do we think? Oh, God, help us.
Yeah, so I mean, is this you want the timbre match now, or you want to try something different? Because I mean, it's pretty hard to say, like, I'm going to get something that's so similar that I don't notice any timbre mismatch, but it's still enough of an upgrade that I feel like I got an upgrade. Like, I don't know how to thread that needle really effectively.
No, I don't either. So either, in my mind, either you stick with Kef.
Yeah.
Just stick with Kef.
Yeah.
Full stop. And then just buy whatever makes sense to you as far as your budget. You buy the single center, the upgraded center, and then get the left and rights later, or get the left and rights and then move one of your R100s to the center, because it's probably going to be fine to go with that. Or you ditch the whole front three and you buy a pair of speakers that are your upgraded, the new type of speaker, whatever it might be.
What's an upgrade on Kef R series? Like, what do you?
I don't know. I don't. That's the problem here. It's like,
really
and we talk about this a lot on this podcast, where people are like, "I want an upgrade to my, $3,000 to $5,000 bookshelf speaker."
Sure, like we can get you different. We can definitely get you different. I noticed a difference from my Kef R series speakers. We can definitely recommend something for I noticed a difference, but like something we would be like, oh, that's definitely an upgrade to your Kef R series. I'm like, I don't know, man.
I don't know.
It's like they're already.
I wouldn't
really
even have problems
speakers.
like almost any brand that's it's going to sound more similar to what you have or had, more similar than dissimilar, because what you had was good and pretty and flat, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, in order for you to get something that is better but also flat, it's mostly going to sound the same. The off-axis response could be different, right? The imaging could theoretically be different, with meaning that off-axis response is going to be worse.
Like, this is if you're going to a different brand.
Yeah, completely different brand, right? Or you could get not flat and therefore sounds totally different, but yet, is it going to be better than what, or do you think it's going to be better than what it is?
Because I'm thinking, okay, if you want something where you're just like, okay, I clearly noticed a difference, like I would have you looking at, something with ribbon tweeters or, something along those lines, where I'm fairly confident that, like, I'm not worried that it's going to be something where you're going really far afield and not getting nice transparency to the signal anymore, but it's something where I would expect that if you're a critical listener, okay, you would probably genuinely notice a difference. But like, if the goal is to get what's pretty similar, like physically the Kef LS50 Meta would be the most similar to the R100s, because the R100s were just the two-way R series bookshelf speaker from the discontinued series a while ago. There isn't really a true equivalent in the current R series, because even the bookshelf speaker in the current R Meta series is the R3 Meta, which is a three-way. So that's a different form factor. So like, one of the things I'm wondering about, because there is that R2 Meta Center, which I would expect to timbre match really, really nicely with your R100s, but is one of the things you possibly want, as I could actually call it an upgrade over your R100 speakers, is the ability to just play louder. Like, do you want the ability to just play? Because the R100s being the two-way bookshelves from back then, there is a limit to just how loud they can play. So if you want something that can play louder, the R3 Meta or the R2 Meta can do that. They just have more drivers and surface area and greater power handling.
Though? I thought that's the other guy with the small room.
It was, yeah. I don't actually know what the listening distance is here, so I will just say, if you want, we're not really helping, but we're giving you some like criteria that will hopefully narrow it down for you. If you want, this is basically about the same size and the same form factor as what I had. It's just the most direct dropped-in replacement. That would be the LS50 Meta. If you're like, I want to stick with Kef because I want to keep the timbre match to our R100s, I might upgrade in the future, but I wouldn't mind if all my front three speakers could play louder. Well, then I would probably start with that R2 Meta Center, which was kind of my original leaning to begin with. I would only tell you to go to a different brand if you just want a difference, but I would hesitate to call it an upgrade. You got really good speakers already.
If we were different people, honestly, if we were different people on a different podcast, and there's lots of these people out there in the world, and not just the home theater industry, but who will tell you the answer. They'll be like, this is it. This is what you should get, and it's gonna blow your mind. It's gonna be amazing, blah blah blah. And they go on with their lives, and you never hear about the results of what they do. And I mean, we may never hear about the results of what you do.
Well, I mean, the thing is, he could get any of these, including going and getting a Revel Center, and the chances I think of him being like really disappointed by the results is like nil. Like, no matter what you get, I feel pretty good about you're gonna be happy with the results.
As far as timbre matching too, we're talking about timbre matching. I don't know that you're going to have much of a problem unless you go really far afield with your other sensor. Like, I went and got a Def Tech or something, and not that Def Tech is bad, but they have a singer, or B&W. They have a sound, right? Yeah. They're not bad speakers, but they have a sound. They may not match well with your current speakers, but a good flat speaker. Yeah. Regardless, like I've talked about numerous times, having one good flat center channel that just matched well with everything until I got speakers that weren't flat.
Well, pure objective measurement wise, it could be like, okay, go get a per listen. You know? Because like those things measure like a dream, and I could say, okay, like even objectively speaking, I could perhaps argue that is a slight upgrade to the KEF R series, although not much of one, even objectively, but I could maybe make the argument on a technical level. But I'm like, do I think you should go out and spend all the money for a per listen center? Like, I don't think it's worth it.
Right, exactly. And like I said,
again,
there are people out there that will tell you that they've got the answer, and that answer is this. And we're going to tell you those people are lying, and they're only speaking from a place of confidence because they know that's what you want to hear.
Or like, if you did go get the per listen center, I think you'd really, really like it. And I think it would match really nicely with your existing R100.
But I think you could buy about 5 other speakers that cost less that you would be just as happy with, if not more so, because you spent less money. Yeah. But, and that's what it comes down to with Rob and I is we get to Rob and me. That's when we give you advice, we try to make sure that we're giving you the advice that's really going to make the difference. Mm-hmm. And in your case, we're like, I mean, would it be an upgrade? I mean, you can upgrade these speakers. You can get an upgrade based on what you're already looking at.
You can get speakers that play louder, like have the ability to play louder.
That would be the biggest upgrade.
Yeah.
But as far as sounding, unqualified better, maybe, it would be a degrees, barely any degrees, really. Larry has a 20 amp electrical outlet in the front of his theater room. He's got his pre-pro, a 5-channel Parasound amp and a 7-channel Teemu amp all plugged in, and when he was using his projector, everything was fine, but he recently got that 85-inch Samsung TV, and now when he plugs the Samsung into the same 20-amp circuit, the Parasound amplifier hums, but the Teemu amplifier does not. He's tried plugging the Samsung TV in a different electrical outlet in the same room, but there's no hum when he does that. So any ideas how to fix the hum when he has it plugged into the outlet at the front of the room? This is a grounding issue? I mean, it's got to be,
yeah, because, I mean, look, obviously, normally on our walls, we don't have 20-amp outlets. That's not the standard. This was added. I don't know if it was added DIY or added by a contractor or a handyman or whatever, but they didn't ground it at the panel properly. That's the only explanation for what happened here. So the real answer is that, unfortunately, I would want to call in an electrician and have them properly ground this outlet.
That should fix your problem.
That should be it. And I mean, that might be some tracing.
And you want to do it anyways because listen to all the stuff you have plugged into it.
Yeah, that's some expensive stuff you got plugged in there.
Yeah, believe me, if you get a lightning strike or something and or a power surge and all your stuff is blown out and they send it an insurance adjuster and they look at that and go, that's not grounded properly.
Yeah.
You out of luck, son.
Yeah.
So, get that fixed.
Yep. Let's call an electrician time for that one. And they might... Like, if you're saying, look, all somebody did was run wire from the panel to this outlet on the wall, why should they have to open up any walls? Well, it's because where did the grounding wire go? It
Right.
apparently didn't go where it should have gone, which
there might
means
not be one at all, which would be a real problem.
I mean, we've seen electrical grounding wires, not attached to anything. That's
Right.
pretty common. We've seen them attached to a pipe because actually back in the day before current code existed, that's what you did when you had a grounding wire.
That was code.
You attached it to a groundwater pipe, to your cold water pipe, which some people still do. You're not supposed to do that anymore. And sometimes if you, say, have metal framing in your walls, we've even seen ground wires connected to that, which is really bad. Like, really, really bad. But it's not out of the question. So if your electrician says, I don't know where that ground wire went, I need to start opening walls and tracing this wire, like, they ain't wrong. You can't blame them if that's what they come back and tell you they need to do, which is going to be more money than you want to spend, but it is the correct thing. It's really the only answer we can say to you.
Yeah.
We're not going to tell you to put a ground lift plug onto something.
No, I know.
Like,
I know. You want me to. Yes, I know. You want me to send you to like the Radio Shack website, which I think is dead these days. And
but
get
just,
like
just Amazon, a ground lift plug, turn your 3-prong into a 2-prong. I know that the hum will probably go away, but it is not addressing
that is
the
not
problem.
Yeah, that is just masking the
It sure is
masking the symptom, but not solving the problem. Peter first heard us over at DJ's Brightside Home Theater podcast, which reminds me, DJ he texted me like a month ago and asked me to be on again, and I said I would, and then he asked me when, and I never responded.
I mean, he's doing fine. They got plenty of people to talk to, so.
Who? Anyways, he followed us from there. He was on one of the Takeover Tuesday episodes where he talked about being a home theater newbie and started things off with the 55-inch Sony OLED and a 2.1 Bose soundbar in his 2-bedroom apartment in New York. He wound up putting 5 Sonos speakers throughout his apartment and connecting his turntable to a Sonos Connect. Well, now he and his wife have just closed on their first house.
Congratulations!
It doesn't feel like anybody can do that anymore. So
yeah, no kidding.
I'll be honest with you. My wife and I were just discussing how lucky we were that we got into this house that we're in right now. Because if we hadn't gotten in when there was like a 3 or 5 year gap before prices really got out of control. But right now, in this neighborhood, across the street from my house, they are building McMansions as fast as they can.
Right.
I mean, it is nuts. I'm like, we can't afford to live here. Like, I need to start dressing up just to go outside my house. There's a room in the finished and windowless basement that he intends to use as his home theater, so it's time to plan some upgrades, and he'd like our help. The room is roughly 24 by 13.5 feet wide. Most of the ceilings are about 7.5 feet wide, but there's a large, wide soffit. Man, these soffits.
Yep. I mean, it's a basement. You've got HVAC. What do you expect? There's going to be soffits in most basements.
A large, wide soffit running from side to side, sort of in the middle of the ceiling lengthwise. So the height beneath that is 6.5 feet. One end of the room has a door that goes out to the garage, and the stairs going up are directly in front of that door. So he'd like to have all of that at the back of the theater, and would put a door to the garage in the right rear corner, and the stairs on the right side of the theater.
Yeah.
Then on the left wall, there's a door to the laundry room. So if he positions his couch in front of all of that, leaving the stairs, laundry room door, and door to the garage all open and clear, that would be the couch about 9 feet from the front wall and directly beneath the soffit on the ceiling. And this has got like some sort of hardwood or vinyl.
It's
planking
laminate.
or something.
Yep. He says his new laminate has been installed in this finished basement.
Yeah. There's a little light fixture hanging down, but it doesn't clear the soffit. So
yeah.
It's interesting.
I mean, it's like a more than a 1 foot soffit coming down there. So,
yeah, it is more than 1 feet. It doesn't sound like it's supposed to be, but it is. So right off the bat, do we agree this is the best way to orient the room and place his couch? I think it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing you could do is like bisect this room and, like turn it 90 degrees or something.
Slam it all against that TV wall so that your couch is on the TV wall, and the TV is. It looks like there's an air register on one side, so I don't even know how that would work. So
no, I think you've got the most reasonable layout in here. It leaves you a bunch of space behind your seat, so you don't have to worry too much about a rear wall reflection or anything like that. It gives you some room to either add some additional occasional seating that would be kind of like be beside the staircase if you need it, or you can just have something else set up in that back area of the room. So no, I think that's probably the most reasonable orientation.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you, I already don't want surround backs in here. Just because I'm a jerk.
Yeah, I mean, if you did, at least you're going to have room behind that couch if you did it.
Yeah, that's true. Prior to beginning his theater planning, he had, of course, envisioned a large projection screen, but now that he's seen the room and measured some distances, he's thinking a large flat panel might be the way to go. I agree.
I agree, too.
Furthermore, his wife already thinks the windowless basement feels too dark. So she is not liking the idea of painting the walls and ceiling a dark color. It's sort of a cream off-white right now. He's coming from the 55-inch Sony OLED, so he can't really imagine accepting a downgrade in image quality, but the 83-inch models are a little expensive. You just bought a house, my man. But yeah. I'll tell you what, that being said, I'm saying that absolutely tongue-in-cheek because very few experiences in my life have put my wife and I at odds like the first couple of months, if not years, after buying a house. You never expect all the bills that are going to come in.
Right.
You never anticipate all the taxes and the insurances and the everything else that comes in. So when you say that they're a little expensive, I am
And he said he was in an apartment before, right?
Yeah.
So like all the stuff you have to do to upkeep a house that you didn't necessarily realize your strata was taking care of for you in that apartment before. It's like there's a lot of chores.
All the yard work and the yard equipment that you didn't realize that you needed until now. I mean, you can easily go to Home Depot and spend $2,000 and get not everything you need by the time you're
but also
done
like
with your weekend.
Every electrical thing, every filter thing, every fan thing, all that type of stuff, that's all you now.
yeah So yes, I agree. Getting a 77-inch OLED would fit the budget much more comfortably. What do we think overall for a display? If he sits 8 or 9 feet away from the front wall, will a 77-inch OLED be big enough? What do we recommend? Okay, so here's what I recommend. Don't spend any money on this home theater right now.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. Live with what you have for right now. Now, because I'm telling you, if you cannot anticipate all the things you're going to have to spend money on in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Do not plan on spending a single cent. I mean, if you need to sit on the floor or on some folding chairs and you just using the sound bar or the Sonos speakers or whatever, do that for now. And believe me, when I moved into the house in Jacksonville when I lived there, I didn't spend any money, and we did sit on folding chairs for a while until my wife went, "We need to get a couch." That's when you start spending money. Okay, that's when when the discomfort of being down there. Now, as far as the painting the thing a dark color and all that other stuff, these are battles that are absolutely not worth fighting right now. Okay,
well, and also, like, if you go with the flat panel, you go with an OLED, you don't have to paint the walls a dark color. Your screen will look fantastic. This isn't a projection setup anymore. So, I would absolutely let your wife stay happy. And you know what? So let's go on the other side of it, which is, okay, he does have the money. The 83-inch is a bit expensive. The 77-inch is nicely affordable. This is no problem in my mind because you do not have to wall mount your television. It seems as though so many people feel like if I get a flat panel TV, it must be mounted on the wall. That's not, you don't have to. You can put it on a TV stand, at which point it looks totally normal, but is now easily a foot to a foot and a half physically in front of the wall. So you could keep the seats exactly where you plan, 8 or 9 feet away from the wall. You put the TV on a stand, that puts the TV a very comfortable, 7.5 feet away, eyes to screen, which is like great for a 77-inch screen size. That'd be wonderful. So I don't have any problem going with the 77-inch. It's not going to look weird or out of place if you put it on a TV stand and instead of mounted on the wall. And now you have a great field of view without having moved the seats either. And look, you've got plenty of latitude to move the seats forward or back in this room, so you can adjust it until you get the field of view that looks best to you. This is quite easy.
So I know what you're thinking, and I am looking at this room. The first thing I thought is underneath those stairs, which if you're looking at the pictures on the Flickr album, or if you're over at YouTube, you'll know what I'm talking about. The underneath those stairs just begs to be like where you're going to shove all your equipment, right? It's going to have a nice rack in there, or like a even one of those.
the under the stairs cabinet like you would normally see.
And even if you just installed shelves that like slide in and out, on like heavy duty slides that are nice and quiet, all this other stuff, so you can get to the back of it really easy. Oh, it just begs for it, right? Then you can have a nice clean look up front by wall mounting this thing. Yeah, you can do all that. Don't do any of it until you are and like Rob said, the 77-inch TV looks fine on the piece of furniture. You know what also will? Does. A 50-inch, the 50-inch you've got, or 55-inch, whatever it is.
That's right.
Just pull the furniture more forward. It's going to look weird in the room, but no one cares.
Move the TV to the front of the TV stand. There you go.
So you can do the same sort. You can have the same sort of field of view. Maybe, maybe it looks a little goofy in the room, but that just serves as motivation for you guys to upgrade in the future. For right now, you're living within quote unquote your means.
Yeah.
So you can make these compromises now, and I'm gonna be honest with you, having all of your equipment kind of off to the side and hidden, that's cool, right? That's cool. You know what it's not? It's convenient most of the time.
Just having it all in a TV stand below your TV, very easy to access.
Yes.
Remote controls work.
Yes. So in not having to run wires inside walls for the most part, just kind of having them along the ground, tucked up in the corners or whatever. So much easier. Yeah. Not having to worry about long HDMI runs, not having to worry about putting conduit in your wall, all that other stuff. This all makes things a lot easier for you. So in my opinion, what you do is live with what you have, buy as little as possible, and use the motivation, the not having the optimal or the correct setup or whatever as motivation for the future to. But
if the money is there, TV stand, 77-inch OLED, gonna be fabulous.
Yeah. So for acoustic treatments, he's definitely going to put down a big area rug at the front of the theater, and he's perfectly willing to have panels on all of the walls and the ceiling too, if it would help. Also, would it be worth replacing the laminate floor, which is brand new, with carpet at some point? With all the expenses of closing on the house and moving in, the budget is a concern. So what can we recommend in the way of DIY acoustic treatments? Okay, so again, I've been more worried about budget apparently than you have. So because that's what I've been talking about from the very beginning here. But yes, acoustic panels, on the walls, corner traps, the corner treatments, whatever ones they are, even the soffit that you have above you there,
right?
Putting like triangular traps along that, that now it's just not just a soffit, but it's like a trapezoidal, or whatever sort of thing. It might look a little weird, but it already looks weird. So now it just looks extra weird, and you can throw some stuff up there. I don't really see much point. I've said it 1,000 times before, but I don't really advocate for putting panels on the ceiling unless that's the only place you have to put them, and it makes sense to do it there. You've got lots of wall space in here. This is a dedicated theater room. Just throw some panels up on all the walls, in all the places that we normally suggest. As far as making your own, we've of course talked about that plenty. We've got our own DIY panel thing that Andrew did over at AV Gadgets. I'll link up for you. Okay. And you can get the materials from the the different places that we talk about, including GIC and all of them. Mm-hmm. So you can do that.
Yeah, for me, like one thing I really like, it's like semi DIY. It's like the least DIY, but it does save you money, is over at Acoustimac. They have their kits, their panel kits. So this is like, I wouldn't call this DIY. I would call this some assembly required, because the frames basically come already made with the insulation already in them, because that's the most efficient way to ship it. Really, what you're doing is being responsible for putting the acoustically transparent fabric in your choice of color and hanging it, attaching the hanging hardware, and that's about it. So I really call it assembly required. So I would definitely, like, if you're gonna go for the kits, go for the 4-inch thick kits, because if you're gonna do it, you might as well get the ones that genuinely make an acoustic difference. So the 4-inch thick kits, it's $55 each for the full package. Now, if you are like, really all I need is the frames, because I'm going to buy in bulk a bunch of just regular 3.5-inch thick insulation, I'm just going to buy a bunch of that in bulk for even cheaper, and I'm going to get my own acoustically transparent fabric to put on there. You can get just the frames from Acoustimac, but already pre-drilled, so that they're much easier to assemble and already pre-cut and pre-drilled. $22 for the 2-foot by 4-foot by 4-inch thick frames for $22 from Acoustimax. So to me, that's a really nice way to save yourself some labor, which pay yourself for the time that takes, still save considerable money over getting fully finished panels, but still get really nice panels. Like the kits for $55 I think are a fantastic deal from Acoustimac. So that's where I would recommend. And then, yeah, as far as placement, like basically, I wouldn't go ripping up this brand new laminate floor and worrying about wall-to-wall carpet. I like your idea of putting an area rug down in the front, between your seats and the front speakers. So if that's what you do, you basically cannot over-panel this room. It would be next to impossible for you to over-panel this room. So, I would start with, in your case, since you're going to have a good amount of space behind your seats to the back wall, I would still want to put 2 or 3 panels on the back wall, but it's not quite as vital for like dialogue intelligibility, because you're not going to have that really bad echo directly off the wall behind you like so many people have with their seats pushed up against the back wall. So I would probably, in your case, I would actually probably focus on the front wall. I would definitely want to have some panels behind your front speakers, which very well might be just on that TV stand or to either side of the TV stand if you go that route. So I would focus on fairly heavily treating the front wall with panels, definitely have some straddling the corners, get that base trapping as much as you can, and the 4-inch panels do a nice job of that when they're straddling the corners. Then maybe on the side walls and back wall, and you're done. Like, you don't have to go crazy on this.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, you cannot put too many panels.
Yeah, you can't overdo it if you're worried about that.
Yeah. So he's hoping the biggest upgrade is going to be the sound system. He has been patiently waiting until he had a house to upgrade that 2.1 Bose soundbar of his, but he's got limitations. Primarily, he's got to keep the budget under control. At least for now, he's got $1,500 to $2,000 set aside to go towards a new sound system. Hey, you know what that's going to pay for? A lawnmower and weed whacker and an edger and some loppers to cut down branches,
and those like air conditioning filters that you didn't realize you were going to need.
That you didn't realize you needed, and all the light bulbs that are burnt out, and that one light fixture that you didn't bother to test, or when you found out that when you turned the shower on in the one room, the shower head goes like that.
All kinds of stuff is fun. Yes.
So yes. You can see where I'm going with this. Then he's got concerns about ease of use and just his general inexperience with a more complicated setup. He is used to only having to pick up his Apple TV remote or his Xbox controller and having the TV and soundbar turn on automatically via HDMI-CEC. And thirdly, he's heard so much about Atmos systems, and he's dreamed of installing one for himself, but with a soffit directly above his seats and never having to deal with a complicated speaker wiring before, he's hesitant to start down that path. So, would he actually be better off just getting a higher-end multi-channel Atmos soundbar? No. And the higher-end 7.1, the higher-end 7.1.4 soundbars from Samsung, LG, or Eclipse would fit his budget? Absolutely not.
I would not. That would not be my recommendation. So for someone, if they're saying I'm dead set on a soundbar system because I just do not want to ever deal with an AV receiver.
Sure.
In this sort of price category, the only ones I might point you to would be Nakamichis, and they do have options, and I wouldn't be angry at you if you went with one of the Nakamichis. One thing I like about them is they come with 2 subwoofers, and they're pretty decent subwoofers, especially in so they've got one that goes for $1,900. That's right up against your max budget if you really do have that money set aside. That they call it a 9.2.4 SSE Max system for $1,900. But that's 2 10-inch subwoofers that genuinely get down below 30 hertz, which is rare for any soundbar subwoofers. And that's a pretty decent system if you want like the slightly easier use of a soundbar setup. Now, these ones have 2 pairs of satellite speakers to serve as surrounds and surround backs, and they actually get their power from the subwoofers. So the way they're envisioning this system is those subwoofers are basically at the midpoints of your 2 side walls, and then there's wires coming out of those to feed the surround and the surround back speakers off of the subwoofers that get plugged into the wall. So that's the connection path. They have a more reasonably priced $1,300 one, which is the 7.2.4 SSE Max. And those are a pair of 8-inch subs, and that's where I'm like, $1,300 a pair of 8-inch subs. I'm getting pretty close to saying, nope, not even worth it, because you aren't getting the full, like, real subwoofer experience. I don't mind that $1,900 one, but man, that is pushing things. So I would not recommend to you that if you're into home theater, that's the way you go. If you're dead set on it, the Nakamichis are what I would point you to, but it's not actually my recommendation.
All right. So this is coming from a place of fear. Okay. And I understand that. Okay. Because home theater in particular can be very intimidating as far as the complexity of everything that you have to hook up and run wires and do all these other things.
Oh, okay. I've got a suggestion to simplify all of that.
Great, but and we will get to that. So again, right now you've got. I'm going to continue and unendingly suggest that you not buy anything right now. You get settled in this house for probably.
I mean,
I
can see wanting to upgrade a 2.1 Bose soundbar. I can definitely commiserate with wanting to upgrade that.
I can see that as well. Okay, and if you did that, I would recommend going 2.1 or 2.0 to start with, and just having some speakers up front, or AV receiver, and a subwoofer maybe, to just get you started in here. And believe me, just doing that, which is not that big of a deal to hook up, right?
Yeah.
But it is exactly the same for every other speaker in your system. Like, there is no difference.
Okay, so I mean, we're on similar packages. I was going to suggest a nice, really good sounding, but affordable 5.1 system to start, right?
Like, let me read the next question, because that's where we're going with this.
That's where we're going.
So, I do not like the idea of spending 19 or however
I don't
many,
like it either. That's why I was saying it's the only that, like,
I don't like that you're spending $100 on a soundbar, because I think that this is just money you're going to throw away.
Yeah. He wondered about like the Sonos soundbar systems too, but like in his email, he's like, I kind of put those out because as soon as I added one subwoofer and a pair of satellite speakers, I was already over the $2,000 budget. I'm like, yeah, that's what Sonos does to you. So there you go.
Yeah. So don't spend money on something that you're not going to want. Okay. You don't have to do that right now. We talk so many times about spending money on speakers that you'll eventually move towards surround or surround back duties. You can do that in this situation. Plus, it will ease you into the setup of which it is that you are intimidated by. You are intimidated by the thought of going from a soundbar, the 2.1 soundbar, to a full 7.2.4
Well, I mean, this is where Atmos
setup
has done a disservice, because there is nothing wrong with a killer 5.1 audio system. I mean, that used to be the pinnacle, and there's no reason why it can't still be excellent.
Right. Okay, so he says if he doesn't get a soundbar, what should he get? He's looked at some Klipsch and Polk speaker packages that fit his budget. Absolutely not. No. But they don't include an AV receiver, and getting one of those that would support 4 overhead speakers looks like it would quickly put him over his budget.
Yeah.
He's also concerned that with his soffit over his seats, he doesn't have anywhere to install in-ceiling Atmos speakers. Does that mean he should focus on upward-firing Atmos speakers instead? Bottom line, without blowing his budget, what should be his starting point for his sound system, and what should he plan for down the line? Again, I think you should be looking at a 5.1.4.
Yep.
That would be the goal down the line.
Okay.
And starting right now with a 2.0 or 2.1.
I mean, would you honestly suggest he buy a receiver that's capable of 9.2.4 or a 5.2.4 right this second?
I don't see why he should, because I think that I think this is going to be first of all, I cannot express to you enough how little Atmos makes a difference in most people's lives, okay?
And
yes,
something I want to stress is
it is okay.
You can do height virtualization. And you know what? It sounds just as good, if not better than, any Atmos soundbar. Because none of the Atmos soundbars are doing anything that is beyond height virtualization. They aren't physically putting speakers on your ceiling. Yeah. So I would sooner do height virtualization than I would upward firing Atmos modules. In a heartbeat, I would take the virtualization. So I want to start with the subwoofer, because you've got a decently sized room here. That is where I do not want you to skip. If you want to notice a difference immediately, it's the subwoofer. And there is no soundbar, including the dual 10 inches that come with the Nakamichi, that could equal, on sale right now for $500, the Monolith M10 V2. I'm so happy to see that back to $500 right now. It's not going to be there forever, but if you do actually have the ability to purchase that, it'd be worth snapping up an M10 V2 from Monolith over at Monoprice for $500, and that will be very capable in your room size. It digs right down to 20 hertz. You've never heard anything like this in your apartment before, and that is going to make a bigger difference than anything you could imagine. From there, I would suggest getting a nice, reasonable, can actually put Atmos on its screen, can do the height virtualization, but I would go to accessories for less and I'd get a Denon S970H. It's $400 to get that from accessories for less. It's a 7-channel receiver, but I'm going to connect, maybe start with 2, maybe start with 3, maybe go to 5 speakers, but I wouldn't go beyond that. And then you can do the Dolby Atmos height virtualization to get a taste of Atmos and still take advantage of those Atmos signals. So now we're up to $900. You got a subwoofer and an AV receiver. So depending on how much money you actually have, I would have you get some Ascend Acoustics HTM200 SE speakers. These are exceedingly easy to place anywhere. You can mount them on a wall, you can put them on a stand, you can put them on a TV stand. They're going to sound fantastic in any orientation and anywhere that you put these. They're a sealed speaker, they're easy to drive, they can play surprisingly loud, and you can get a 3-pack of those or a 5-pack of those. Getting 5 of those all at once is $800. So even there, you're like within the budget that you specified. You're between $1,500 and $2,000. If you do that. But you could start with 2, you could start with 3. Definitely keep this to under $1,500. And the sound quality you would get from Ascend Acoustics HTM200 SE speakers with the Monolith M10 V2 subwoofer and the Denon S970 receiver blows away any sound bar setup that you would have that has oodles more drivers, but I don't care. The sound quality is what matters. And that Denon AV receiver, if you've never hooked up a system before, it has a wizard that walks you through it the first time you plug it in, and it's actually good. If you follow the wizard, you will be fine.
Yeah. So I'm not going to make a bunch of links here because it's going to take me forever to do. But we literally have guides at AV Gadget for almost every single step of this process. So if you have questions about banana plugs, just stick into our search bar, banana plugs. Do I need them? How do I hook them up? What does that look like? If I don't have an article, tell me. I'll write one for you. Okay. Running, how to hide speaker wire, how to different ways of routing wires through your system. All these other things, we have it all. I'm going to disagree with Rob here.
Okay.
And here's where I'm going to disagree. Again, I'm going to point you towards spending even less money than Rob is. I don't think that you should go over to speakers with these HTMs. I like these HTMs. I think it's a great suggestion.
Oh, I mean, I'm fine if you just start with a pair of them. Yeah.
So I think you start with a pair of them.
Okay.
Because, first of all, we're going to be saving money. You do not have as much money to spend as you think you do, I think. I think you are vastly underestimating how quickly these bills are going to pile up on you. But you'll have more money to spend on other stuff, and then you can live with these HTMs for a little while. And listen, these HTMs, there's literally not a speaker that we're going to recommend to you, not a single one, that the HTMs can't be a good surround or surround back speaker for. Yeah. So every single speaker you might buy based on our recommendations will work well with these, which means that going forward, you will have unlimited access to the different speakers that we might recommend. Okay.
And they can become overheads too if it ever gets to that scenario.
Yes. So think of it that way. You can't go all 5, and then but then if you go all 5, you kind of end up with a one extra speaker that you're not really sure what you're going to do with.
You can always get a single to pair later.
You could. But I think that you should just go with 2, and then you can then move up from there. I like every other suggestion that's going on here. I mean, you could actually get 2 and then get 2 subwoofers.
We're almost out of time. We got 10 questions left, so this is going to be a lot left over.
All right, it's all right. Dazz appreciated a discussion about his renovation plans and whether it would be worth shrinking the basement bathroom so that he can make a theater room the same width from end to end and flipping the orientation of his theater 180 degrees so this basement door would be at the back of the room instead of the front. If you remember from last week, this is the blurry pictures where
it is
all that stuff.
I'm still showing them.
He's back with some additional info, so he's hoping we can revisit his situation and discuss things a bit further to help him make a decision. First and foremost, the theater definitely cannot be moved to a smaller room in the house, and there's no other larger space upstairs where the theater could go. Dazz, his wife, Drea, and are a blended family with 3 sons. They also have a niece and a nephew living with them. The Dazz has 4 family members on his side, and Drea has 11 family members on her side who all live close by. So there are lots of people coming and going all of the time. His theater room is always in use, and that basement door, with its rather inconvenient placement at the front of the theater right now, has people coming in and out frequently. Tom asks what's being renovated upstairs. The top priority is having the loft closed in to make a proper fifth bedroom. That needs to be done before school is fully underway. Well, dude, you were running on that. Well, I don't know where he lives. Here in Florida,
there's probably starting September.
Ours. Yeah, around here, that is not happening.
Right.
They're expanding the kitchen and doing a full gut and reno in there. They're updating the main bathroom. They're expanding the laundry room. So if the basement reno is limited to just moving one partial wall to make the bathroom smaller and the theater room larger, that's relatively minor compared to all the rest. Still money, but whatever. Mm-hmm. There wouldn't be any issues with the plumbing, which is one of the things that we talked about, and we didn't think there would be, but he's confirming.
That's right.
The door to the seldom used utility room currently on the theater's back wall could in fact be flipped to open into the utility room, since the utility room is actually fairly deep. Dazz has seen Youthman's screen set up where he has a fixed frame screen attached to a hydraulic arm so they can be lifted out of the way, easily lifted out of the way. Dazz was thinking he might go for something like that in the front of the utility room door to give him the occasional access he would need. Or there's about 9 inches from the ceiling joist to the drop tile ceiling, so installing a retractable screen above the drop tile ceiling is probably doable. Lastly, while installing a door to close off the theater from the basement hallway would be great for the base in the theater, that's actually a lower priority for them. They've been fine with the way things are, and while there are HVAC registers to feed their theater room, he's pretty sure the air return situation will require additional work that they don't really want to deal with right now. So the main things would be moving the bathroom wall, flipping the orientation of the theater 180 degrees, and possibly switching the utility door to swing the other way, and deciding how to occasionally move the projector screen out of the way. With all that info in mind, can we help him make a decision?
So, I mean, just hearing how much that door ends up opening and closing, I'm like, yeah, I can see why you're annoyed having it at the front of your theater room right now and always having to be careful of that front left speaker. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm seeing where he's coming from. It's like, honestly, if you can afford it, if it's not a problem, it would be a little bit weird to flip the theater 180 degrees right now and have that narrower front end. So yeah, I mean, if it's affordable, I'm not against it. And if you're able to flip that door on the back wall so that opens into the utility room, now you don't really have to worry about any sort of complicated screen setup. You can just get a normal retractable screen, because the reason I was worried about the in-ceiling retractable screen is because you don't have any height above that door. So when you pull the screen up, if you've still got the case of the screen below your ceiling, then, the door is going to bang into it. But if the door can open the other way into the utility room, you can just get a normal silver ticket retractable screen, and that's affordable and easy and easier to mount and all of that stuff, and you're done. So I think that's taken away a lot of the concerns. Now it's just a question of, do you want to spend the money to shrink the bathroom? But I think that's addressed all of those things, and I'd be happy to do it.
So, I mean, if you're just looking for blessings or whatever,
right.
I mean, the reality is that in the end, we don't care. You do whatever the heck you want. And if you're asking us what makes the most sense for you to do, I mean, there's 1,000 answers that we could give you that would make sense to us and maybe not make sense to you. So the one thing I do want to challenge you on, though, is this idea that installing the door is a low priority for you, and all of that. I have a problem when people, because, and this is my own issue. Okay, so many times I have found myself going into a problem, and the problem itself is expensive and complicated, and I get almost everything I want, and I'm like, I mentally go, if I make one compromise, then I've saved money, and things will, it will somehow karmically be better for me because I didn't go whole hog and just be completely selfish about what I wanted. So I oftentimes, as I get to the end of my decision-making process, like just say I'm... if I was going to buy an AV receiver or an amplifier or something like that, so buy an AV receiver, I want all of these things, right? These are the things I want. I want the highest level of Odyssey. Maybe I want DRAC. I want to have this many speakers. I want to have this type of control and blah blah blah. Like that's just whatever, wireless setup or whatever. And I find two things that are contention, but one doesn't quite do everything I want.
Sure.
But one does. But it's a little bit more expensive. Many times,
as it usually is. Yeah.
Many times I'll find myself gravitating towards the one that's a little bit less expensive, thinking I can just give up a little bit, and that just makes me less selfish and makes me a better person, and I'm saving some money, and it's fine. And then I end up at the end going, I wish I had just gone the thing I really wanted.
Sure.
And with this idea that you're not really worried about the great bass in the theater and whatever, it's fine the way it is. You're doing all this.
Right.
Just do all of this.
Well, I was going to say, I agree. If this is going to be a whole HVAC reno along with it, I wouldn't want to do that either. But
it doesn't sound like he's really asked.
Yeah, well, chances are, assuming the air return is, somewhere in that basement hallway, then, just a normal interior door with a gap under the door.
Yeah.
Probably works. I mean, I would definitely want to confirm with an HVAC specialist, because there does have to be certain cubic feet per minute transfer for ventilation purposes. But in many cases, just the normal gap under a door like we're used to. Now, so if soundproofing is not the priority, that means you're okay with, some sound is still going to leak out. There's the gap under the door, but it's still going to be a lot less, and you're still going to be able to pressurize that room a lot closer to full pressurization in that room with the door, with the gap under the door, versus just a completely wide opening. So I agree with Tom. At least ask your HVAC specialist. If I just put a normal interior door, and it could be a solid core door, but with a gap underneath, if I do that with a gap underneath, is that going to be okay as far as the HVAC system is concerned? If it is, I would go ahead and put the door on. Yeah,
I just feel like if anything I said about that thought process is kind of like ringing true to you, you need to rethink it and go back and just might as well do it right. If you're going to do it, let's just do it right. Yeah. So yes, drop motorized screen, flip the door.
Yeah.
Move the wall, whatever. Can't believe that I have to convince you to put a door on your theater when you know that you should. And this is the one if I don't do that, then it won't be, maybe whatever. You're probably going to save a couple $100. Whatever, man. Just put the door on there. Eric has his home theater set up in this detached garage. He's got Send SC speakers all around for the ear level, and Monoprice THX speakers mounted overhead for Atmos, all powered by his in receiver.
Those are those little Monoprice THX satellites, the 4.5-inch cube satellites that they've got. Yeah.
A few weeks ago, he had the garage door open. He was out in the yard. He put the sound system in a multi-channel stereo mode and cranked it up so it was decently loud even in the yard. After 15 minutes or so, okay. Does anybody anticipate what's going to happen here? After 15 minutes or so, it went silent, and there's a blinking white light, and it wasn't just protection mode. The AV receiver was fried. He contacted Denon's customer service. They had him ship it to an authorized repair shop. He got it back 3 weeks later, and the repair slip said they had replaced the power transformer. The whole process seemed a little sketchy to him, with no tracking info or any communication at all. Was receiver away, but it does seem to be working now. He's wondering. Okay. This is operator error, in case you're wondering what the problem here was.
This is beyond the capabilities of the speaker trying to play out into the wide open outdoors.
Yes. Were his Monoprice Monolith THX speakers with their low impedance and low sensitivity the main problem? If he used a 7-channel surround mode instead of multi-channel stereo mode, would his receiver have survived? You cannot expect almost any of the SE speakers. You cannot really expect these speakers to fill a yard. That's not what they're meant for.
That's not what I would do in this scenario.
Well, even if they were in the yard and not in a garage facing the wrong direction and doing a bunch of other stuff, that you would have fried this. This is when we talk about amplifier power and needing a certain amount of amplifier power to get speakers to a certain level. Most of the time we're like, you don't need it, as long as you don't turn it up too loud. And then you were like, hold my beer, I'm turning I'm literally turning up. It's like I'm wondering if the receiver was literally as loud as it could go. I'm wondering if
it must have been getting up there. And yeah, when you put it in the multi-channel stereo mode, that is putting sound into every single speaker. So look, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't want to attempt to make those monolith satellite speakers play that loud. So I would avoid that. But would this have avoided I mean, this isn't the scenario. We wouldn't recommend that you do this. So look, if you want to have some music playing out in the yard, there are some great outdoor speakers. Those Dayton outdoor speakers are a great thing. You can get
headphones.
There's headphones, but I mean, you can get a pretty inexpensive, powerful 2-channel amplifier. You can get a nice Class D 2-channel amplifier that's going to power those Dayton outdoor speakers just fine. You can connect those to the Zone 2 output of your AV receiver that's already there, and now you can play all the sources that are in your garage theater out of the Zone 2 output, and that's the way I would handle playing sound in your yard. I would not attempt to play any of your inside your garage home theater speakers as your outdoor speakers by just opening the garage door.
Bluetooth portable speakers.
Sure.
Outdoor dedicated speakers, headphones, anything would be better than trying to make your home theater speakers in your garage do this.
Yeah.
He has would adding an external amp be a good precaution? I mean, you're just going to fry the amp if you do this, really.
Or the speakers eventually.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know, either way, something's going to break if you continue to try to do this.
The external amp you're adding is to power a pair of outdoor speakers, then yes, off of Zone 2.
Yes. Would adding an AC infinity cooling fan help protect his receiver? No. Turning it less loud would help protect your receiver.
I mean, not that I ever want to warn someone away from getting an AC infinity cooling fan, because they are nice and they are good and they do help keep the AV receiver cooler, but not to the point that they're powering the great outdoors.
No. And on a different topic, he uses the newest Chromecast with Google TV as his primary streaming device, both in his garage theater with a Denon X3700H and a BenQ TH850 projector, and in his living room plugged directly into his Sony X900F LCD TV.
Mm-hmm.
When he finds time to watch a show, he doesn't want to have to waste even a minute fiddling with the settings, but the Chromecast doesn't seem to automatically switch frame rates. He can manually set it to 4K 60 or 4K 24. He can easily see judder in movies if he leaves it at 4K 60, and he also watches sports via streaming, so leaving it set to 4K 24 is no good for that. He found a mention of a video smoothness setting for the Chromecast, but all it talks about is attempting to always send the highest frame rate possible, and that will dynamically lower resolution before it lowers the frame rate if you set the video smoothness to on. So is there some other setting that will automatically switch between 60 frames per second and 24 frames per second for him? I don't know.
On the Chromecast, no. Nope. It's just flat up no. It doesn't do automatic frame rate switching. It's one of the reasons it is not my favorite streaming device. It's one of the reasons the Apple TV 4K is my favorite streaming device if I care about matching frame rates. What I will say is on your Sony TV, it has a setting in its video settings called True Cinema. And if you set that to high, it does a good job of then detecting. So the signal coming in would be 60 hertz. You would leave the Chromecast that's plugged directly into your Sony TV. You would leave that set to 4K 60 output. With True Cinema set to high, the Sony does a good job of saying, yeah, that's a 60 hertz signal coming in, but I can detect that it was originally a 24 frames per second signal inside of that 60 hertz container, and it will do the inverse 3-2 pull down and get rid of most of the judders. So the Sony TV does a good job of that. Your BenQ projector does not. There's really no solution on your BenQ projector other than manually switching between 60 and 24 or getting a different streaming device altogether that does frame rate matching properly.
All right. Lastly, he found a playlist on Spotify with a whole bunch of sweeps, test tones, and audio test signals. Would that be useful for testing your AV receiver? Sure. Why not? I don't know what it does for the receiver. It does for the speakers.
I wouldn't trust it though, because I mean, all Spotify content is compressed, and part of compression is often some roll off in the bass and the treble. So I wouldn't necessarily trust that the levels coming out are exactly like the original signal that they uploaded, it might have been fine, but after it went through Spotify's processing and compression, I don't necessarily trust that it's bang on as far as the levels go. So if I'm trying to like measure a bass sweep, I don't necessarily trust that that's actually coming out all at the same level, even if the, original signal that was uploaded was perfectly fine. So given how easy it is to like go to audiocheck.net and make sweeps and test tones of your own, or just plug in something that runs Room EQ Wizard and generate any tests or sweeps that you want to from that software, I trust that that's going to come out correctly, and that's what I would choose to do for that.
All right, what are we doing for time here?
Oh, we got about 20 minutes left. Yeah.
Julian, first up, an anecdotal tip. He heard us mention how it can be a good idea to connect your AV receiver to your router with a physical Ethernet cable, rather than using Wi-Fi when you're running the room correction program from an app or a laptop. He was using the Odyssey Editor app with his Marantz receiver connected via Wi-Fi, and it was freezing halfway through. He didn't have a long enough Ethernet cable on him, so he simply tried positioning the Marantz's Wi-Fi antennas vertically instead of horizontally, and voila, it worked flawlessly. So that's an easy thing to try if you're ever getting stuck. So I've had problems with the Odyssey Editor app on my phone and between my AV receiver. And my AV receiver is hardwired.
Okay.
And it was at the time, but I was using Wi-Fi from the phone, obviously.
Yep, sure.
And I was having problems. And doing this wouldn't have helped me at all. What did help me? I don't know. I think I placed the phone closer to the AV receiver because I thought, I don't know, my brain was like, maybe it needs to be
that's
closer.
Not where the signal's going. It's going to the router.
Closer, even though the router's on the other side of the house, but who cares? So did it make a difference? I don't know. So
that might have been placebo is what we're saying. Yes.
Not just a little bit. Yeah, yes. That's
but sure, by all means, go ahead. Because I do, on the Marantz and the Denon receivers, they do have the little clips for those Wi-Fi antenna that position it horizontally, and then it clips in so that they aren't moving and jiggling around or sticking out. But he's like, I took it out of the clips, put them vertically, and it seemed to work then. So you know what? That's a harmless thing to try. And if it does work for you, fantastic.
Yes, nothing wrong with that. So he's got a JVC NX5 projector and a Marantz SR8015 receiver and a Panasonic UB420 Ultra Blu-ray player. He was getting lip sync issues at one point, and we suggested he try turning automatic HDMI lip sync setting off in his Marantz receiver, and sure enough, that worked, but not for every disc. For whatever reason, he found that some discs need that setting on, while others need it off, and it's an annoyance to have to figure out disc by disc. He couldn't find similar automatic HDMI lip sync settings in either his Panasonic player or his JVC projector, but did he just miss something? Is there some other way to fix this? I bet he's using old discs, like DVDs or Blu-rays or whatever that were older.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Yeah.
Because that's when I find I have issues. It's like I've got it like so my brother is autistic. I've talked about him another times on the phone. He collects movies, and now whenever my parents have given, his room is small. He's got a bookshelf and he actually has some custom cabinets that they had built that are just to store his content, his movies. And he's not allowed to have any more space because there is no space to have. So as things become available on DVD, he started buying them on DVD so that he could switch them out with the VHS. Right. And now that they're on Blu-ray and the Blu-ray discs cases are smaller, he's been doing the same thing. So I keep getting hand-me-downs from him, like movies I'm never gonna watch, like the entire
and
Spirit.
On DVD no less.
Is it Spirit? That is a horse cartoon, Spirit or whatever. There's multiple of those movies, I believe, and I've gotten at some point all, and I give them away or whatever because I don't need DVDs of that. But when I have gotten some movies I'm interested in watching, and it's an older DVD, that's when I run into issues with the letterboxing being weird, like it's all centered in the middle of your screen, and lip syncing being off. So what do you say, Rob?
So on the Panasonic player, it does have an audio delay setting in its menus, but it doesn't have the same lip sync on or off as your AV receiver, and the JVC doesn't, because of course it doesn't handle audio. So what I would suggest to you at this point, maybe worth a try, is your UB420 does have two HDMI outputs on the back of that, one of which is audio only. It separates the audio if you activate that, and just sends audio out of one of the HDMI ports, and then video only out of the other one. I would maybe give that a try at this point, because to me, it's probably the going through the AV receiver into the JVC. That's, three devices that all have to talk to each other. Something is going awry there. But if you separate the audio from the video and send the audio directly just from the player to the AV receiver, if something is going to fix this, I bet it would be that. If that doesn't work, then I'm not sure what else he can do.
Okay. His theater room is about 4,500 cubic feet in volume. He uses a pair of SVS PB3000 subwoofers ever since he got them. If he plays really loud content below 25 hertz, he gets audible port chuffing. The subwoofers themselves do have a low-end filter setting to roll off the output below 25 hertz, and of course, he could adjust the target curve in his Odyssey editor app. Frankly, it's very rare that he ever comes across content with frequencies that low while he's playing a system loud enough to cause the port chuffing. So should he just leave things alone and not worry, or should some setting be changed, or are a pair of PB3000 simply not up to the task of pressurizing that room size? 4,500 cubic feet, 2 of those subs. It seems
they
like that
should be
fine.
okay. They should be okay. I wonder, did you plug one of the ports?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I was
yeah.
actually thinking 2 things. The first thing I was thinking is port plugs. Did you use one? And second, are you sure it's coming from the party? A lot of times,
Oh, it could be.
I'm not saying it couldn't, but what I'm saying is, are you sure? And the reason I'm asking is because so many times when we hear a noise in our room, we're like, that's this, and then we go over and walk next to that thing and go, no, it's not. So first of all, and I'm not saying that it's not port chuffing, but
because it could be.
Just make sure. And if you have plugged a port, maybe it's time to not do that.
Well, because with the SVS subs, people get so enamored with in the extended mode, when I plug one port, it goes down to 17 hertz or 16 hertz or whatever. You don't need to. On the SVS subs, they are tuned to 20 hertz. That's all you need. So I would definitely run your PB3000s all ports open. And then the other thing to check either way, whether you're just bound and determined to keep one port plugged, or you have all ports open, or whatever the situation is right now, make sure that the mode for the subwoofer is in the correct mode, because it has 3 modes. It has all ports open mode, 1 port plugged mode, and fully sealed mode. And there are things in the amplifier setting, the DSP amplifier setting, to go along with whatever your port configuration is. It's completely within the realm of possibility that it's just in the wrong mode right now, and that's entirely responsible for this. But I would recommend, because your room is large enough, I would run a pair of PB3000s, all ports open, in all ports open mode, and I would be very happy with the 20 hertz extension, and I don't care about making it quieter so that it can stay linear down to 17.
Yeah. I cannot express to you how little I think that those anything below 20 hertz makes a difference that makes. On a completely different topic, it seems to him that anytime he's seen fire depicted in any recent movie, it's all CGI and it looks fake and pulls him out of the movie. What movies are you watching, man? I haven't seen them. I've seen bad CGI, but fire in particular has not stuck out to me. If anything, every time he's seen fire in a movie within the past 5 years, it looks worse than it did compared to movies from years ago. I guess 6 years ago.
Yeah.
He could totally understand the safety benefits. He wouldn't care or mind at all if it looked real and convincing. So why in 2023 does CGI fire look so fake and only seem to be getting worse? I'm going to ask you about your TV settings now.
Okay. And of course, this is content dependent.
Of course. He's saying movies, right?
Yeah.
And generally speaking, movies have the better CGI. I mean, yes, there is a certain amount of fakeness that you see in explosions. I mean, people get blown back and land on the ground, and they don't have their internal organs liquefied by this impact wave and everything else. So there's a lot of that goes on. I mean, are you a let me say something that an anecdote that I heard in an interview with somebody that is in no way related to anything I've ever experienced before. This person is a serious birder. Okay, these are people that go out and find birds and look at them or whatever, take pictures. I think sometimes, I don't know. I'm not a birder. Anyways, he's talked about how he can't enjoy movies because the bird calls are all wrong. If there's a bird call, it's like, that doesn't live there, and it takes him out of the movie completely. So are you in some way a fire expert or a fire enthusiast or somebody who
or a
who knows
pyromaniac who spends his time viewing fire all the time?
I don't know. Maybe you're a fireman or a fire person, or maybe a narcissist. I don't know what you are, but I will say that if you know too much about something, it can ruin that something. Is it raining? It is.
I don't know.
It that can ruin that something for you in movies. And if
Sure.
that's the case, and you know a lot about fire, and you're like, that's not real, I don't think there's anything we can do for you.
So I would say over at Corridor Crew on YouTube, they've done lots of this analyzing like all kinds of computer graphics effects because that's what they do at Corridor Crew, but they've done particularly on fire in some of their episodes. And the things they've pointed out in ones where they're like, yeah, that isn't right. Why isn't it right? Let's break down why it isn't right. Because very often, like, the actual CGI effect itself looks good, but then you see it on screen in the scene and it doesn't look real. And so number one is almost always the lighting, right? Because the people were lit on a soundstage somewhere and the lighting is incorrect for the explosion or the fire that just happened. And you're noticing the you know, anachronism between the fire you're seeing on screen versus the way everything else in the scene is lit in response to that fire, and those things don't match. And there's not a whole lot that the CGI artist can do about that, because they can play with contrast levels and color correction and that type of stuff, but there's no correcting for there just wasn't the light present that there should have been from that amount of fire, and it just looks wrong if you know the way it ought to look. The other one is they're like, yeah, the filmmakers somewhere up in the signal chain, they always want the fire to look nice and yellow or orange, or have those like dark parts with the reds and stuff. They're like, no, in real life, fire looks white. Right. Like, it's so bright that it's just blown out and white. And if you expose the camera correctly for the faces that you're still managing to see right now, the fire would just be pure white. That's the way it would look in real contrast. So because they want to like have the person's face still visible and not blasted overexposed, but they want the fire to still look like orange and yellow, that never looks like real life, because it would be one or the other, right? Either the fire would be orange and yellow, which meant you'd put the exposure way down and now the person's face is completely invisible, or you could see the person's face but the fire would just be completely overexposed. Those are the only ways that it could happen in real life, and of course they don't want the movie to look like that. So it could be something along those lines where it's just an artistic choice of, yeah, they want the faces to still be visible and they want the fire to still look nice and orange, which it wouldn't. That's not how it would look in real life.
All right, we're having a dog-related issue here.
We are. So I can go ahead and read Jay's question while you're dealing with Doggo. So Jay is finally almost done setting up his theater room for real this time, he says. He hasn't watched any big demo-worthy movies at his home for the past 3 years, so his normal go-to demos have always been scenes from various Star Wars movies or blasting some Metallica if he puts on some music. But do we have any more recent demo material suggestions that would let him feel his new sound system, stuff that we'd say is worth an immediate purchase?
I mean, Dune, right?
Sure. I agree.
Dune comes to mind. The new Batman movie probably has some stuff in there that...
Oh, yeah, that's an easy one to say. Yeah, you'll enjoy the movie regardless, so that's worth a purchase.
Okay, so this she's very afraid of thunder and loud noises, so that's what's happening here.
We can see her on screen. She hasn't made noises, so we're all right on the audio version.
She will not make noises. She will sit on my lap, though, whether I like it or not. She gets very freaked out. A Quiet Place.
Oh, okay.
If you're looking for overhead sort of stuff.
Sure.
And there are, lots of very, louder noises in there as well. If you're looking for those louder noises. I'm trying to think of what else I've seen recently.
Like, these are terrible movies, but I do have to hand it for, if you just want to feel some sound going on, the Transformers movies do have very, very aggressive Atmos mixes. So if you just want to have that blasting around the place, yeah, they'll do it
see
for
that
you.
Isn't there a new Transformer movies, the Beast one or something?
There is. I don't think anybody went to see it.
No one went to see it. Too busy seeing Barbie?
Yep. And fair enough.
I want to go see Barbie. All right, that should be good enough for that.
Yeah.
How much time do we have left here?
Let's try and do two more if we can. I hope so. Yeah.
I need you though to lie down though. I know that you're shaking.
For those who can't see because you're doing audio only, this is Violet, the smaller doggo, and
the big dog would not be sitting on my lap. I would not have a lap left.
Yeah, that's right.
Jorge has a 65-inch TCL TV in his basement home theater. It started having power issues, so rather than get it repaired, he's using it as an excuse to upgrade. He'd like bigger and better. Jesus, dog. Like bigger and better, something in the 83 to 85 inch screen size, but he doesn't want to overspend. He wants the very best value, not just get the flagship so you can say you have the flagship model. He does some gaming. He has the Xbox Series X, but this isn't the highest priority for him. He's much more concerned about movie playback on this TV. What do we recommend most highly, and how do Sony's X90 LCD models specifically stack up to the competition? The takes from different reviewers seem to be a little all over the place. Rob?
Yeah, so I mean, look, the number one choice I'm going to point you to is they are still available, the 83-inch LG C2 OLEDs. There is no reason to pay $1,000 more for the C3. There is essentially no difference from the C2 to the C3. Yeah, certainly nothing that would justify $1,000 price difference. The C2 83-inch is at $4,000 right now, so that is expensive, but value-wise, it can't really be beat for just pure image, beauty, and quality. Plus, it does every green check mark that your Xbox Series X could do, so even if that were a priority, it would still be a top choice. The 83-inch G3, which is the whole, do I get the flagship just to get the flagship? There's not really any reason at the 83-inch size. At the 83-inch size, the G3 does not have the new micro lens array panel. It's only the 77-inch and smaller that has that. So you're not even getting the boosted brightness in the G3 model. It's just a change of chassis for like $6,500, like $2,500 more. So the C2 OLED is my number one recommendation to you. Now, if you're like, look, $4,000 is just too much money, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. I would say the very best value right now would be going with the 85-inch TCL QM8. That is a brand new 2023 model. The 85-inch size of the QM8 has 2,300 local dimming zones with mini LED backlighting, and it is impressive. It is crazy bright. The full array local dimming is impressive. It is on sale for $2,200 right now, which is pretty tough to beat. You know, it's almost half the price of the C2. It is out of the LCD TVs, there's nothing more impressive than that one, and it is less expensive than the Sony or the Samsung counterparts. So the QM8 is something I could definitely get behind. It is still not as good as a C2 OLED, and the viewing angles from side to side are dramatically poorer on the QM8. If you are not sitting bang on axis, it very quickly loses that wonderful contrast and black levels as you move off axis. So if you have any sort of a wide seating area or care about anybody sitting to your left and right instead of dead center, the OLED earns its keep right there. But yeah, those would be the two I would point you to. Is the X90 LCD model, why do you see these, like, some reviewers love it, some people don't love it so much? It's mainly because, I mentioned this earlier, Sony tunes their TVs to make sure that the shadow detail remains just as visible or as close to as visible as they can to their mastering monitors. On the X90 LCD models, that means the black levels are like kind of raised up, like everything looks kind of gray, but you can still see all the shadow detail. So for people who are like, shadow detail is what I care about most, I like the way Sony does things. But for people who are like, I want my LCD to look as inky black as it can, it just doesn't on the Sony. Everything kind of looks a bit gray, including the black bars above and below letterboxed images. They look very gray on the Sony. It's quite noticeable, but the shadow detail is all there. So it depends on what you value most. It cannot hold a candle to the OLED. It just can't. So that would be my preference.
Okay. It is really coming down out there.
Oh, wow.
Ilango knows we just recently made some recommendations for a portable outdoor projection screen and affordable projectors that will work well for a backyard setup. But he's in Canada, and he was hoping we might have some recommendations for his specific needs. Mm-hmm. He's fine with 1080p, no need for 4K. It's mostly for watching some sports, weekend movies, and maybe playing some games with his boys and their friends. He's hoping the projector could provide RCA audio output so that he can connect it to a pair of PA speakers. Nothing more than 2 channel is needed. He'd like the screen to be super easy to put up and take down. $1,000 to $1,500 is the budget. What can we recommend? So this is a Canadian thing. So
I've got some pretty direct recommendations. I would point you to one of the projectors I did mention the other week, but BenQ's TH671ST, and yes, the ST stands for short throw. That is not ultra short throw. This is like if I'm throwing a 100-inch screen, the projector lens is about 5 feet away, right? So most projectors would be like 8-9 feet away.
If you're looking to put speakers connected to these things.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's a very convenient setup, being able to have the projector closer to the screen, but not like directly beneath it. 900 Canadian dollars gets you that TH671ST from BenQ. It is 1080p, but you said that was fine. It has nice, 16 millisecond input lag. So if you are gaming on it, it's not going to be any problem that way. 3000 lumens of brightness. So yeah, this is a nice projector for backyard, and being DLP, the light path is completely sealed. You don't have to worry about filters or something like that like you would on an LCD. So yeah, I like that as the choice there. For the screen, what I would probably suggest, if you want the absolute easiest, I mentioned this before as well, Elite Screen's pop-up screens, you can get that. Now the thing is, the largest size they have in the pop-up screen is 92 inches. So, it's 190 Canadian dollars if you get that. So we're within the budget range that you talked about, a little over 1,000, but not crazily so. If 92 inches is not big enough, then you would have to go up to Elite Screen's Yard Master screens. So the Yard Masters are just like an aluminum frame that you assemble, and then you hang the frame and snap it onto it there. So now you're getting up to about $300 for like the 120-inch size, that type of thing. So, or 110-inch size. It's about $400 for the 120-inch size, but still within the price range that you talked about. So I like those pop-up screens a lot. They are truly like, they just fold down like the screen visor you might put on your dash when you're blocking out the sun, and they just pop open, and then they crunch down into a circle that you can put into a tote bag and take with you. So if 92 inches is big enough, I like that a lot.
There you go. How long is this question?
Yeah, we're at 2 hours here, so if you want to stop, we can, or I'm happy to go one more.
Just do one more while this dog's on my lap anyways.
Let's chat.
Ryan appreciated discussion about the light renovation he's doing in a small 11 by 13 foot room in his basement to turn into a dedicated theater. He was relieved that we also disagreed with several of the Best Buy's consultants' suggestions. The guy wasn't even wearing a blue shirt. Well, I mean, how can you trust that dude?
How can you trust that in that case? Yes.
Okay. A few clarifications now that we've weighed in. He didn't touch any HVAC registers. He's guessing whoever finished the basement was an amateur because he's had to correct several other code-related shortcomings. The door can be changed so that it swings out instead of in. That's what he plans to do regardless. He did consider making the room wider than long, but for the seating situation he needs, it's more valuable to him to have one main row of 3 seats and the ability to fit in a few more people in sometimes. I think I said that sentence wrong, but I don't care. Since he's already has the projector, he's going to semi-follow our advice and now have the main seats as the back row with a low slung or beanbag chairs in the front of that for when they need to fit more people. He agrees his DefTech towers aren't needed in this room, but like Rob said, he already has them, so he isn't looking to spend more on new speakers right now. So it makes sense to use them, at least for now. Okay, first, it sounded like we weren't fans of installing 4 in-ceiling speakers for Atmos in here. Now that we know he'll put his main row of seats fairly close to the back wall, what we'd recommend as his Atmos configuration? I mean, nothing. Honestly, nothing.
No, I mean,
you could put, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, if it was coming from me, it was more that I wasn't too crazy about like drilling holes in the ceiling and putting in-ceiling speakers in here. And honestly, in this room size, not necessary. You could definitely get some wedge-shaped speakers as front heights and front backs, mount them on high up on your front wall, high up on your back wall, and that would work totally fine. So I think I'm more in favor of that than, putting the big holes in the cans. And like, I would want you to have backer boxes, and oftentimes people don't, they avoid that because it's just more hassle and more expense and all that. So yeah, I wouldn't be crazy about in-ceiling Atmos speakers, but I'd still be happy to have 4 height speakers, and certainly in this room size, you could do that and have very good effect.
I agree. I do not think that you need to put. I think just putting them like the wedge-shaped speakers at the front and back of the room make the most sense for that. He doesn't have any problems agreeing to a 5.2.4 configuration instead of having surround backs. That's good because surround backs would be terrible in here. Yeah. He only owns a single SVS SB1000 Pro right now. Should he get a second one of those? Should he get a single PB1000 Pro and pair that with his SB1000 Pro? Or should he get a pair of PB1000 Pros? First of all, your SB1000 Pro was pretty much designed for rooms this size.
So this is the one where I always get a little bit afraid, because if you are very happy with no bass boost in your room, and like a lot of people like a bass boost, right? Beyond a flat line, they like a bass boost, and I have no problem with that. If what you want is like a flat line bass, the SB1000 Pros are okay. A pair of those would be okay. If you prefer to have some bass boost in this room, then I'm like, okay, you might wanna upgrade to the ported sub. This is where I would point you back, though, especially right now, to Monoprice's Monolith M10V2, because they're on sale right now for $500. That is considerably less expensive than the PB1000 Pros, and for this room size, those would crush this room. So if you're gonna do it, you can easily sell your SB1000 Pro. There are definitely buyers out there for that. You will recoup some money on that, and I would go grab a pair of Monolith M10 V2s for $1,000 for the pair of them, and that would crush this room.
Okay. The Best Buy guy wanted to sell him a $300 Chief mount for a Sony 325ES projector. Is there a different ceiling mount that we would recommend instead? So the thing about ceiling mounts, and I've used a couple of them, the thing about ceiling mounts is you use them once, and then you don't really have to you very rarely have to touch them again. Sometimes you do. It depends on where the bulb in and out thing is, and the filters, where the filters are, and that sort of thing. You might have to touch them again, but it is sometimes so much worth it for the aggravation of having to try to align an image on a screen, where a more expensive mount has that fine adjustment that's just so easy to do.
And he's got a Sony 325ES, which is a very nice projector. Right? That was a $5,000 projector when it was new. He got a great deal on it, but it's like a higher end projector. It's about I'll say 35 pounds to be safe, right? I think they listed as 32 point something or whatever. So like, this isn't inexpensive, under $1,000 little DLP projector type of thing that you can throw up there with, any cheapo mount. I'm like, to me, it's worth getting a nicer mount. I don't think you need to spend $300 for a Chief mount, though. So the one I always like to point to in a scenario like this is Peerless. You can get those online from B&H Photo. So Peerless has their Precision Gear ceiling mount, which is rated to hold 50 pounds, and it really genuinely does, so it's absolutely fine for your Sony 325ES. And it has that nice little worm gear adjustment for all three axes, so you can get it perfectly lined up, pixel perfect, up on your screen with your genuine 4K resolution coming out of that projector. And it is nice to have that. So it's $170, right? So it's not a cheapo mount, but it's less than $300. That's for sure. And it's a really, really nice mount. So I like that one, the Precision Gear mount from Peerless.
So he's trying to decide on paint color. He's sort of leaning towards a dark navy blue, but completely black front wall and ceiling with gray side walls and back walls is not out of the question. What do we think is best? Well, we've talked about the Sherwin-Williams paint quite a few times on here, and I will try to find my article that talked about that.
So if you're looking it up, if you just want to search for Sherwin-Williams gray screen, which is a nice, easy to remember name, that'll get you to the right paint family. If you're looking up by the model number, it's the SW, standing for Sherwin-Williams 707 family of paint colors, and then it's like 707-1, 707-2, 707-3, and so on, and they just get darker and darker. So that is the reason we like that. It is objectively has been measured as an exceedingly neutral gray paint, meaning that any of the light that's coming off out of your projector, bouncing off the screen, bouncing off of the room and back onto the screen, it will not impart any sort of a color tint or shift or anything like that. Any light that makes its way back onto the screen is going to be color neutral. So the main things I would focus on are like whatever, you like as far as the deepness of the shade, like gray works really well. The more important thing really is the sheen. So if you go for the full flat or the matte, so matte is actually got a little bit more sheen to it in Sherwin-Williams lineup than flat. Like those are the type of flat where if you brush a shirt sleeve against them, you're going to see a mark on your wall, and that's not fun. It's just too much worry and maintenance, and you're gonna have still stuff moving around in here, and possibly people moving past not that much room on the side walls. So I wouldn't want to do that. The sheen that works really well in Sherwin-Williams lineup is velvet. So that's like one step below eggshell, right? So if you notice a regular eggshell finish, which has got a little bit of a sheen and glossiness to it, but not much, velvet is like one step below that. So it's just enough sheen that you can like brush past it on your shirt sleeve and not leave a mark, but it's not quite as glossy as eggshells. So that's what I would recommend there. I would probably just do gray all around.
Me too.
I mean, I know there's a projection set up, so do you want a white ceiling? Like, hey, if you can get that ceiling darker, so much the better. But I know how much Tom loves painting something black because, reselling this house is going to be so easy with a black ceiling.
The ceiling, the whole room gray freaks people out too, man. Just leave the ceiling white.
But I mean, gray walls don't freak people out.
No, they don't.
That's pretty normal at this point.
Because I painted this theater, if you're watching the YouTube video, I painted this theater one of those grays. I'm not sure. Like software, what's the name?
Software or network or something in
one
that
of those
area.
Yeah. So, and it looks perfectly reasonable in here.
Yes.
Nobody walks in here and says, "Why is this room this weird color?" It's
right.
It's
and
a
if
nice
it
color.
weren't a theater and somebody was just buying the house, they wouldn't freak out about the wall color.
Yeah, they would not. That's right.
Yeah. But I mean, if you want the utmost video performance, I mean, I don't know, could we consider fabric on the ceiling instead? Something that can be taken down?
Yes.
That's maybe not out of the question, right?
Yeah, and I have written an article about that as well.
Yeah.
All right. Who do we have left?
We have on the list Vasanth, and I got to scroll past some pictures and a whole bunch of questions. Alan, and I think that's everything on the list. Those are multi-part questions, but you'll be first up next week.
All right. We want to thank our listeners of the week. We want to thank Peter, Galen, and Alan for going to avrant.com and clicking on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link and sending us a PayPal donation, as well as our 127 patrons over at patreon.com.
Yes, thank you, Peter, Galen, and Alan, very much for your financial support over via PayPal. And patreon.com/AVRant podcast is the place to go to sign up or re-sign up for an automatic monthly donation, because they're just dropping like flies apparently over there. That's what's crazy to see. But big thank you to the 127 of you who are still around.
So I thank Gary for sending Rob a movie code to test out.
Yes, thank you, Gary, and I can confirm for you, it works in Canada. It's A-OK.
All right, so when you move to Canada, it'll be waiting for you. We also want to thank those who sent us notes of gratitude, including Vince, Fred, Jonathan, Galen, Gary, Teemu, Larry, Peter, Dazz, Eric, Julian, Jorge, Ilango, Ryan, and Vasanth. Thank you so much for thanking us.
Got to put the N in the right place there. I'll say the names one more time. Vince, Fred, Jonathan, Galen, Gary, Teemu, Larry, Peter, Dazz, Eric, Julian, Jorge, Ilango, Ryan, and Vasanth. Thank you all so much for your notes of gratitude and encouragement. They are definitely appreciated. It was funny to me because the one really critical thing of all the movie reviews I did last week was for Mission Impossible. I was like, really? Out of the three, that's going to be the one that someone hated what I had to say about it. So that was a surprise, but there you go. It's nice. It's nice to have the counterbalance from the people who are telling us that they do enjoy what we do. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you for sending in your questions and continuing to listen, everyone.
If you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. For AVRant, I'm Tom Andry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AVRant.
Now go out and listen to something.